Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Gate Expectations Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the Gate Expectations Podcast, where I bring in a weekly guest, talk all things Yu-Gi-Oh! And get to know a little more about each person I talk to. This is the only Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast that is run by a full-fledged journalist such as myself. This is episode 44. Hey, that's my favorite number. That's why I'm Gate Guardian 44, so it's a special episode. But if you haven't checked it out yet, you can check out earlier podcasts with guests like Crush Cards, Yassine, Pack, Distant Coder, and the guy I'm about to bring on. It is Ruggles. He's back for a third time here on the podcast. A very special podcast here because this is the 44th episode. Ruggles, thank you so much again for coming back on yet for a third time.
Thank you for having me. I feel like every time we have these chats, we end up having a great time. We talk for maybe 2 hours. We end the podcast, and then we continue talking for another hour because it's just good to catch up with old friends.
It really is. And you know what? That's the thing. Because, first, I remember when I talked about this, maybe a day or two or earlier today, I told about, how much time and effort it takes to kind of run these YouTube channels, first of all. And, I know you're really busy because you're running 2 channels at once. And then I know I have my full-time job and I'm running this channel. And then I know Crush Cards, they have a really irregular sleep schedule, really irregular when they're doing all the filming. I feel bad. And then MST TV with Thomas, he's got a full-time career. And then he's also putting full-time into his YouTube channel too, so he's God bless him, he's putting so much time into this. And I know he made a Twitter post not too long ago saying that he's sometimes he kind of feels the burnout, and I don't blame him one bit. I completely understand it is. I don't know if you felt any kind of burnout so far with all your channels that you've been doing. Tell me, how have you been feeling about doing the Yugi tubing so far?
Oh yeah, I think until you're working full-time as a Yugi tuber or whatever your entrepreneurial endeavor is, you're probably working 80 hours a week if you're lucky. I know that I have weeks that are a lot more than that, but I think that we do it because we love it, and I think we all do tend to burn out. I think that's just part of the game, unfortunately. But I do think that we continue working because we love it, and eventually we get to a place where maybe we get to calm down, but we have a great community, we have great friends, and it's something that you can work through.
Absolutely it is. And I see when people make these burnout posts, there's a lot of support behind it too, whether it's the YouTube community posts or Twitter posts or Facebook posts saying, I kind of feel burnt out, I need to take a step back for a bit. And the fans are completely understanding, and they know that these kind of doing all these videos are taxing. And a lot of people that I had tried to ask to come on the podcast and they've just had to say no, or just can't get to me because they're so busy themselves. Because I get it, I understand it. And being a journalist, I'm used to being rejected by many people saying, I'm sorry, I don't have time for this, I can't talk to you, that kind of thing. So you kind of have to get a little bit numb to those kind of things. And it's taking a lot of time out to do all these things. While we love it, there's still a lot of work that goes behind doing every single video, for sure.
Oh, without a doubt. But again, it's one of those things where you are, really grateful for an audience that understands, especially when you can take that time off. But it's it's okay to take that time off occasionally, to not feel guilty about it. I feel like I haven't in a couple years, but I feel like if I just keep telling myself that, eventually I'll actually listen,
Well, I'm sure when everything opens up a bit more, and it has been gradually, at least in Canada, we've been a little bit slower with the whole COVID protocols and being able to open up. But since things are opening up, we have a little bit more time to go out and explore. And I'm sure eventually you might go travel, maybe, take your lady with you and, go travel somewhere and go have some fun. I know that that's something I would love to do with my girlfriend. Our anniversary is coming up next month. So that's definitely something. Actually, a month tomorrow will be our fourth anniversary. So that's something for us. So we're hoping that we can maybe travel around during that time.
Well, congratulations. I think that within that period, everybody is estimated to at least have the opportunity to get their second shot here in
Mhm.
Ontario.
Yep.
And if that's the case, then I think we should be in stage 3, which does permit everything to be open and people to travel and, do things safely again.
Yeah, crossing our fingers. Out of curiosity, have you had any shots yet?
I've had my first. I've signed up everywhere to get my second. I have, all of my emails ready. I have
Yep.
my phone set so if I get a text, I see it immediately.
Hmm.
I'm so excited to have a bit more of a normal life again. What about
Yeah.
yourself?
I've also had my first one. That was 3 weeks ago. So now I'm finally eligible for my second shot. So I just have to book it
Yep.
and then hopefully get it very soon and then go from there. But I was late getting my first shot because I was one of the last people to be able to get it because being a healthy male,
Hmm.
not a frontline worker, able to work from home, I checked like all the boxes of
Same.
yeah, you don't need to have your vaccine first. You can wait. So that's where I was. But I know a lot of people now that are able to get theirs a lot sooner now, at least in Canada. I don't know how it is about the States, but I know that there's a considerable amount of people in the States that have got their second shot. So like, good for them for being able to open up and like start to see like a little more success as we move forward.
Oh yeah, I mean, just this weekend I saw on Twitch, Pac was streaming from what was essentially a 200-man regionals. Susu was there, Nim Nim
Yep.
was there,
Hmm.
Zara was there, Crush
Yep.
Carbs were there,
Hmm.
and it looked like so much fun. Everybody was talking, playing their games. They went back to the
Yep.
Eternal format with Striker and Salad.
Yep.
But man, it really got me wanting to travel, got me wanting to again be out there. We were having so much fun going to regionals, staying in hotels, doing all of that right before everything shut down,
Yep.
and it was just like such a hard cutoff. I think that a lot of us are really excited to play some shiny cardboard again.
Yeah, you're telling me. And if people haven't tuned in, I have a new series, by the way, which I'll get to it later, which I mentioned. But Konami announced that they're getting a return. At least the United States are on the July 15th, where they can now get in-person OTS tournaments going on again, which is exciting news for them. I'm sure that if we had the same thing in Canada here too, like we would be just as equally excited to have in-person tournaments again because uh, you know that's kind of a big reason why we kind of play this game. We would love to play. We love playing in person. We love
Mhm.
meeting new people. If
Yeah.
we hadn't have had this game, you and I would have never met probably. So, take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, it's so true. The human interaction, I think, is really what I love about this game. And I know a lot
Mhm.
of people are in that place. I was talking to Mario about it too, and his favorite thing is always just getting in the car and traveling, having an excuse to do that. The fact that
Absolutely.
Yu-Gi-Oh offers that in a way that a lot of other hobbies don't. It's fantastic, and it's coming
Yeah,
back.
absolutely it is. And I know that I spoke with Mario, not too long after I did the podcast with him, and I've joined him on a couple streams, which he's been doing fantastic, by the way, on it.
Hmm.
That we when Bevel opens up and he's able to open up his store, I'm like bringing a brigade of people from Peterborough to come down to Bevel to help support his store and be a part of his tournaments because I because we talked about it in length in our podcast about how Belleville's been kind of deprived of like a card store for a while since the other stores kind of went down and decided not to take on Yu-Gi-Oh anymore. And it was a great chance for Mario to open his store, capitalize on the Yu-Gi-Oh market that's pretty empty because all you have left is Brighton that doesn't do any competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, or go all the way drive an hour to Kingston, or you come
Yeah.
an hour 15 to Peterborough where I am and play Yu-Gi-Oh there. Like that would be like your next options, quote unquote, assuming COVID wasn't a thing. So like big on him, and I hope that he's got a lot of success going forward.
Yeah, it looks like you made it through the rough of it, as have the remaining card shops. And
Mhm.
from here, things are looking pretty good.
It really is. And speaking of which, with his shop being kind of a little bit more open, and you've been able to get your 1v1 series back and kicking again because that was kind of put on hiatus for a while because Ontario had a bit of a shutdown. They called it quote unquote the emergency break, where we had to go for 6 weeks without doing anything, like back to like square one kind of thing. And now that things have been able to open up again, you've been able to do your sealed only series, which has been going fantastic since it's come back. Well, it's been fantastic the whole way, I should say. But now that it's back, how do you feel that you're able to get to like run the series with him again?
Oh, I love it. I always say this to Mario, but I feel like throughout the entirety of the week, it's work from the moment you get up to work the moment you go to bed.
Yep.
But on filming days, you get up, you get to go spend time with your friend, you get to open some packs, build some decks, play some cards, like do all of those very cathartic things that we just haven't had the opportunity to do for so long. And I very much look forward to those days in my week. Always a big stress relief, just something therapeutic almost. So
Yep.
it's been great to be back. It's also been really nice because I'm starting to get a little bit of a comeback. So
Yes.
I was pretty behind. As you know, the Lightsworn deck started off pretty strong. Cyber Dragon deck, not so much, just didn't have the staples. But we kind of took this, month and a half long break. And that whole time I was like, how am I gonna dig myself out of this hole? And now that we're back and I've got a couple more wins under the belt, it feels really good. So all perspectives, absolutely love it.
Yep, and you just finished episode 17 roughly 4 days ago from when we're recording this. Have you recorded at all episode 18 already, or is that something that's going to happen like in the next couple days?
Episode 18 has been recorded. When is the podcast that we're currently on going up?
Where I'm trying to get this for Monday night. That is the plan.
Okay, so I did win. And we are now tied. Yep, 9-9.
Oh,
it's intense.
baby.
Yeah.
Oh, man. This is a winner take all match. So this is going to be fantastic for people to watch because everybody in sports, at least anyway, everybody loves like a game 7 or like a sudden death, like winner take all kind of thing. It's probably one of the most exciting moments in sports to happen, where it just takes 1 second for everything to change. So I mentioned this to you before we went on, that I dislike Lightsworn greatly. I really dislike that deck because I feel it's so sackish. And this is not a slight to Mario at all, but because by nature of the decks that you've chosen, I have sided with you on this regard because I'd like Cyber Dragons more than I like Lightsworn. So I'm rooting for you. So I hope you take it all. And I think of it this way. Hopefully, if that's $1,000 you can ring off Mario, at least you're getting $1,000 of product off him, so he can at least circulate his product and keep his store going.
Yeah, when Lightsworn came out, I played the deck when it was 3 charge, 3 solar, 3 JD, all of that, and I wasn't a big fan of it. I definitely much preferred the Dark Arm Dragon decks of the time. Though I do really want to commend Mario because I feel like his modern version of Lightsworn is so much more combo heavy in that it's not linear. You can go in so many different directions because of the additional engines that he's started to play. He's playing the dragons, he's playing the Phantom Knights, he's playing the Thunder Dragons. There's just so much going on that it's one of those decks that really makes you think. And I think that Lightsworn had a really large transformation because I really like his deck where I don't like traditional Lightsworn. So it's interesting, and I think the way he builds and what he's done with the series has made it so much more interesting, especially considering if I'm going to win a game, I'm going to win it with Seeger, Rampage, and maybe Infinity, right? Like it's those 2 to 3 every single game. But with his deck, it could be literally anything. Like I have no idea. It's always a surprise, and so I give him a lot of props on taking a deck that I don't conventionally like, a deck that you don't conventionally like, and turning it into something very different.
Yeah, because in those days, in those kinds of decks, like 1 negate just seemed to be like enough. Like 1 Omni negate seemed to be enough. Like this was when we go back to with 6 Samurai running 1 Shien, we just felt like that card just alone would just win games because you couldn't really do much after it. And it seems like, but when you put 1 negate against his board, it doesn't feel like it's ever enough, because if he makes a big push, but it's not enough to kill you, he also has a lot of like defensive oriented options that he can play after he makes his push. Like the Phantom Knights, for example, he can, dump gloves to get boots, and then boots gets himself a fog blade, and then he's set up for defense ready to go for for when you go. So you kind of hope that you've got that feather duster or twin twister something.
Exactly. No, 100% of the time. I top decked the Duster one game and it gave me the win. But like we both knew that in no world would I have had it otherwise. So you are entirely correct there. But we've actually, you mentioned taking that $1,000 off of him. We've actually changed the rules a little bit because we did end up in a scenario where we could have a tie. So we were watching Farfa's stream. Nadir, I know you've had him on the podcast. It was really fun listen. And somebody in the comments said, no, it ends with a tie. It's like the 50th episode or whatever of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, where Jaden and Zane, right? And we were like, oh, that's actually really funny. Can't happen, but really funny. And then we got really competitive, right? As we do. And it's like, well, you want to double it? You want to double the stakes? You want to play for 2 cases? And like, of course, we both like that idea as well, right? We're both pretty confident in ourselves and in our decks. So we came up with a new idea. And I'm not sure if this will be in the next episode that drops. It might not actually be. Okay, so here's a little exclusive, I suppose, for those listening. We're going to play 4 games in the final match, which is upcoming. Which seems a little strange. Why not 3? Why not 5? We want the potential for 3 different outcomes. So if one of us wins 3 out of the 4, then regular rules apply. We get the case from the opponent. If it ends up being 2-2, it's a tie. And then we buy each other half a case, which would just be a comical ending. But like what we both really want and are now going to be fighting for is if one of us wins 4-0, the other person owes 2 cases. So 3 different options, one of which very funny, one of which unlikely. It'll probably end with like the singular case going to one of us, but there is some added variance and some added stress and excitement to go with it.
I mean, it's cool that you raise the stakes and kind of generate a little bit more interest in this as well, because I always said to everybody when I tell about your series that in my opinion, your series is the best video production of every single series that I've ever watched on YouTube ever for Yu-Gi-Oh! Anyway, because like I know you went to school for this kind of thing, so you're kind of trained in that, kind of like how I'm trained in journalism. So me interviewing a whole plethora of people is like right up my alley, as is video production is yours. But I love how you and I can apply what we learned in college and apply it to Yu-Gi-Oh! In a very professional and like beautiful manner in that sense. And that I think that's been like a real draw of why your videos have had so much success, is just the beauty of just watching it. I can even just watch your videos just on mute and just enjoy what I'm looking at because they look so nice. And I know that, as you told me last time we talked, you borrowed one of our good friends, Rory. You borrowed one of his drones, and that was one of his, and took some shots of the 1v1 series with that. But that's like one of many shots. It's not in every single video, as far as I'm concerned. But you know, just the creativity of getting those shots is there for you as a videographer.
Yeah, the cinematography has always been something that matters to me a lot with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Channel. When I started the channel, I wanted an excuse to see my friends again, but I also wanted to just kind of flex my creative video making muscles. I didn't want to make a short film. I didn't want to make like an indie movie. I wanted to make something more serialized, and getting into Yu-Gi-Oh! And doing the series was something that just seemed really natural. And I think that I definitely entered this space with a bit of an advantage because of my background in it. That said, there are 2 potential series, one of which I'm not sure if we'll call it a series, but there are 2 things coming up that I think everybody should be really excited for. The first is a series Sam is doing Team Samurai X1. He's doing with Milano. He's doing with Triff and another fellow. There was a trailer over on Nadir's stream, but it's essentially like a cubed format as they work through every box. It's almost like the progression series, but they scrap the box that they opened previously so that it's a bit more balanced. And Sam is putting tens of thousands of dollars, literally, into the production. I know that he's hiring directors. I know that he's using sound, mixing stages and all of that. It's going to be really, really cool. And I think that's probably coming out in the next 2 months.
Yep.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention was Kevin, Distant Coder. You've also had him here on the
Yep.
podcast. He's been watching a lot of vlogs, and I love his stream. I've been watching it, and I can see him kind of dissecting things that he likes, things that he doesn't like, and you can tell that he's thinking very critically about it. And like, he's very kind when he watches them. He's never rude about it, but you can tell that he's like, okay, I like that, I don't like that, and he's kind of piecing together what his vlogs are going to look like when he can start traveling. And I think, just from what I've seen and hearing the way he talks about it, that they're going to be really, really good too. So yeah, I take a lot of pride in the cinematography on the channel, but I think that very soon we're going to have some really great things. And I also want to shout out Crush Cards. They do a really nice job.
Absolutely.
Like, really, really pretty. Even their backgrounds and their lighting, and like they put a lot of thought into the aesthetic of the channel. So big shout out to them, and also big shout out to Winner Kills. I don't believe you have had him on here, but his B-roll at the beginning of Deck Profiles is also gorgeous. So there's a lot of talent. Nim obviously inspired most of the vlogging YouTube community as well. Can't ever forget him. But yeah, a lot of talented people, and I'm just learning from it, taking from it, doing all that good stuff, as I hope people are doing with my series and Mario series.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how we've gone from YouTube-tubing with everybody doing it with like digital cameras and whatnot, and now everyone's really starting to get like more invested into it now. Like, we're getting like really high-tech webcams, like really, really excellent like smartphones that can do really well with video, as like I would and I did when I do with my journalism, that's what I would do. So it's really nice that we've seen technology like play a pivotal role in the YouTube-tubing as we move forward. Now we're seeing so much like quality video production from a lot of these YouTubers now, and it's kind of making like the product even better and better as we move forward. So now it's a really exciting time to be like invested in YouTubing now, because of how technology has evolved and made everything so much better, more appealing, and also much more convenient.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, but I would like to add a fairly large note to it. I was asked in the comments what equipment Mario and I used to film Sealed Only 1v1, because they too wanted to make something similar.
Yeah.
And so I started to type everything out, and I was like, well, we use 3 of this DSLR, which is about $1,500 a camera. And then we use all of these different lenses. And then I have a $1,000 microphone that I'm talking into. I have a computer that can edit 4K footage. We use a bunch of different mics, and I looked at it, and it was slowly adding up, and it's like, this is a $10,000 production, not even considering like the drones or anything like that. And like, in my head, that was really discouraging initially, because I didn't want to tell someone like, oh yeah, you just need $10,000 of investment and you can make a YouTube series. Because like, that isn't how it is, and that isn't how it should be. Like, we are a very niche example of what can be done with that, as is Sam's series, which is going to happen. But I'd also like to remind everyone that while high production video content is doing well on YouTube and can see really nice success, it's also important to recognize that that isn't the only way of going about it. And one of my favorite channels that I've been watching a lot of lately, the DB Grinder. What he does is he talks into his webcam. I do not believe his webcam costs more than $100. It's not great quality, and that's not a knock, because he gets great views. He uploads incredibly consistently. It is very informative content. It's very laid back. You can always watch it. You don't feel like he's forcing anything on you. But he does it with like maybe $100 webcam. He records the screen, could be a laptop, who knows? And he makes fantastic videos. And I think like accumulatively he gets more views than I do. So point being, like, you could spend $10,000 on equipment and make the beautiful B-roll and cinematography, but you can also spend $100 and have a great personality and a lot of information and make something that is equally as successful. So if anyone here is listening to this and they want to get into making content, recognize that there are different types of content, and you don't need all of that money. You just need to make a great type of video and you will find an audience, and that audience will stick with you.
Hmm. And I might be a bit of a poor example, but I record all these podcasts. It's all from my iPhone. It's what it is, and I just have like a pair of headphones in because unfortunately the program that I use it doesn't allow me to do podcasts from my computer unless I'm doing it solo. So that's kind of it's a weird thing. It's a weird feature. I don't know why that is. I don't even know why I continue to use the same program, but aside from that, that's what I use. And then I did pay for like Adobe Premiere Pro, which is the program I use to like edit everything that I do, because I also use that program to edit all the videos I do for my actual career as well. So it kind of plays like a double role for it. So really, everyone kind of has the equipment already to do it. Like everybody has a smartphone nowadays,
Yep.
and everybody has headphones that can correspond to it. So like if you want to do something as simple like what I do, is just a podcast, like that's the two things that you need, and maybe just some kind of like easy editing software that you can use just to trim down whatever podcast you do. Or some people just post it raw. Some people do. I do just a slight edit, just the intro. That's all. I just get the intro ready and then just let the rest play out raw. That's what I do nowadays. And then I add in some bonus footage, which has been like a new feature of mine now from my podcast moving forward, because I get that idea from like TV shows. At like the end of every episode, you might on a sitcom, you might see like some fun footage or just a little aftermath of like one of those cold opens that you'd see on shows like The Office, for example. That would be one of those shows. Maybe like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just little fun things. And I remember Team APS made a tweet, and they said that it doesn't matter if like your content, if you feel your early content isn't good enough. Like the key is that you always just get better every single video. I think it was Paul who said that, and like I took that to heart. I'm like, he's absolutely right. When you look at it, like when you look at past videos before, it's like I've looked at like past like videos before from my old channel when I did used to YouTube. I'm like, that wasn't the greatest. That was And then you kind of see yourself kind of evolve a little bit, and that's normal. That's part of the growing pains. It's part of the maturity process that you're undertaking when you go through this.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm going to jump back on that train. But before I do, I can't believe I didn't mention Paul and Team APS when I was talking about quality videos. I think they are doing like incredible work right now. They have great backgrounds, great shots, great video structure in general. Always entertaining, great, cast of characters to work with. The way Paul organizes all of it, like that, I think for many is a real inspiration. I was actually talking to Alex Simo about it the other day, and we were both just like, yeah, Paul gets it, and Paul does a great job. So yeah, shout out to him. Obviously, I'm sure everybody listening is subscribed to Team APS because great channel. But getting back onto the general conversation, I definitely agree. I think that there are different ways of going about it, and it's really just about finding what's comfortable for you and making it. I mean, I started making YouTube videos, I think when I was 14 or 15. It was the year YouTube came out, and people were just uploading dumb things like 360p videos, right, made on our laptop webcams. And you just kept making things, and things just kept getting better, and you don't learn until you do it. Well, you don't learn as much as you can until you end up doing it. So
yeah,
I definitely recommend. And something I always get asked, what do I do when I want to start a channel? I always say make 3 videos that you don't intend to upload, but you just make them to learn from them. You figure out your process, you figure out editing time, you figure out how you can improve them, because that 4th video you make will be 100 times better than the first video you make. Or you'll learn that whatever you intended to make, you just don't enjoy or you don't have time for. But it'll teach you really important lessons regardless. And that's something I'd advise for just about anyone.
That's really good information to kind of give for people, because a lot of people, like I said, I've talked to a lot of people on this talk about like their first videos. Like they always say like, yeah, that was like a little bit cringe for myself, and it wasn't as good as I was like to be, and that's just normal. I think like when I did my YouTubing first, I think I did like a couple in my room, and I think I did a couple randomly in my downstairs bathroom, just because it was my way of quote unquote being different. That's what it was. And I'm just thinking like, okay, I don't think I would do that. I don't know, but that's just the thing, though. It's you're just trying to find your ground, and then eventually it'll happen. And then everyone now who's like so popular. They've got their own niche. For example, like you've got this 1v1 series with this amazing video production, and Distant Coder, as we said, he's the judge. He's the judge
Yeah.
YouTuber. You want to talk to him about rulings? That's the man to go to right now. If you just want like hype and everything like that, you go to Team Samurai. You go to Triff, like, because they're all about that. MCO40 like does a bunch of like just up to date news, like Crush Card. They also do like their box openings, deck lists, and also their own little like news as well and updates. So everyone's kind of got like their own niche, which has made them so successful.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what I'm trying to do with my channel right now, because nobody's a fully dedicated podcast like my channel. Nobody does. Like, now that I introduced my new series last week, as you saw, it's called The Gate News, where I try to bring in just a weekly update of what's been going on in Yu-Gi-Oh, because not everybody is quite up to date on Yu-Gi-Oh news, and that's what the whole point of my segment is just to keep everybody informed. Like, when you look at it, most players be like, okay, I already knew this, already knew this, I got it. But there are some people who just can't quite like get to that, and that's what this series is supposed to be for, is just provide a quick update for it. So I'm glad that I am able to kind of put a new spin on things and keep my journalism persona into my YouTube channel, because I bought a green screen like last week, and I'm like, this is what I'm going to use it for this. And I know that not everybody wants to listen to like an hour and a half podcast. Not everybody does. So I thought, what else could I do different from everybody else, but at least maintain my journalistic persona? I'm like, a news segment. I smacked myself in the head as if I forgot to drink a V8, that kind of thing. I'm like, man, and they only take they're 3 minutes long. Easy. Everyone can look at it real quick. Like, okay, good, done. Can't wait for next week.
Yeah.
And that's been and trying to go from there.
I really love that you started that. I was thinking a lot about the consumption of Yu-Gi-Oh news, and I know that I get the majority of mine from 4 sources. One is Twitter, one is Instagram, one is Robbie Cole, as you mentioned, and the other one's House of Champs. Now, Robbie Cole and House of Champs generally do videos about individual things. So if you want a deep dive, a 10-minute discussion on something, those are great. But for somebody who just wants like a lot of condensed information because perhaps they don't have time, the show that you're starting is fantastic, because not everybody has Instagram and not everybody has Twitter, right? I think that a lot of people in the Yu-Gi-Oh community actually just don't enjoy the other platforms. And so to have that opportunity here on YouTube is a new thing. And it's great for an audience that, again, doesn't have Twitter or Instagram.
And I designed mine to be fairly short, kind of like a quick like breaking news segment kind of thing, like make it very easy, short and quick, because even though I'm not a big fan of TikTok, first of all, I really hate that app, but TikTok right now is such a trending social media platform, because these are a lot of like quick short videos that people just get drawn to real quick, and then they can move on to the next. So, and I understand that just grabbing somebody's attention is so key, and just retaining that attention for a very short period of time, like that's what you need to do, because people can trail off after like 4 or 5 minutes of like the same thing being churned out. So you really need to do a lot to captivate them. So that's why I try to keep these news segments very short, so that way people can get it, they got it, they understand what's going on. And like I always put links down at the bottom for like where I get my sources, because journalism can't just like make up news out of their butts. They absolutely they cannot. Some people might, but that's not journalism that I'm approving of, or I like, for that matter. But just to put that out there, like that's what I want to do. Like if you want to read more on it, here's the source that I got it from. You can read more about it here. I just lay it out for you. This is what it is, and then let people on their own time like see for what it is. And I hope that this series moving forward will really start to appeal for a lot of people, especially for those who aren't quite up to date on the news that's being churned out every single day.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's a lot of news. It's condensed. It's digestible. It has the potential to work really well within the algorithm, which is really important. As you were talking about with just audience retention, you have that little analytic in your YouTube studio. And if you can see that the majority of people are dropping off through these longer videos, then I think it makes sense to just go a little bit shorter. And if you go to the trending page or you look at your recommended feed, you're probably going to see a lot of videos that are between, say, 13 seconds and 3 minutes, just because more people can watch the entirety of them. That reflects well algorithmically, and you just end up getting a lot more views through the recommended feed and all of that. And those are important things to consider as content creators.
It really is too, because again, there's a lot of people out there who just have like maybe have like ADD or ADHD, or
Yeah.
or they're kind of like sucked into like that YouTube vortex, if you will. They always go from watch like a couple minutes of a video here, then they want to go on to the next one, and then the next one, and all of a sudden later it's like, oh, I've spent 3 hours just looking at YouTube videos for nothing. I've been a victim of that many days over on school assignments, writing articles. I've definitely been a victim of that, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta stay up till 4 in the morning now to finally finish what
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be doing. But I'm hoping that this series again will start to capture audience's attention moving forward, and also it also allows me to be a little bit more comical in these videos as opposed to where I do these podcasts. Yeah, we have laughs and there are some humor, but it's meant to be very informative. But the newscasts, I can be a little bit more silly and a little bit more like off the cusp. I for lack of better word or phrasing to say, because if you know me in real life, I'm a pretty positive guy, and I like to laugh a lot, and like to joke around a bunch, but I know when to get serious when it's time. But in a normal setting, like we're going to be the first in line to kind of laugh at something.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that showing that personality is also just really important, especially in the online space. I mean, eh, everything grows, everything expands, competition arises in everything. And what really ends up prevailing is personality and connection. And the more you can interject your personality into your content, the better you're probably going to be
Mhm.
later down the road. And that's something I considered a lot, and I talked to Mario a lot about when he started his channel and we were both doing all of the vlogging. Like, I was incorporating the cooking segments, the working out segments, Halo, watching Smallville with my girlfriend, all of that in my Yu-Gi-Oh videos,
Mhm.
just because I wanted something to look back on and I wanted it for the memories, but I
Yeah.
also felt like building that personal connection with the audience was a lot of fun. And whenever anyone would mention like, oh hey, Halo 3 was also my favorite game of all time, or
Yeah.
I remember that episode of Smallville. Like, I always loved reading those comments, having a little conversation about it. And I
Mhm.
think that, like you were saying, with your new show, you kind of open up more. You're a little bit more comical, and you can interject that personality. I think that's so important, and definitely a good move.
And that was one of the things too that I always enjoy about your videos, is that you and Mario have been friends for so long. So this fun little rivalry that you have between each other, it's genuine. This is a genuine connection that you have with each other, and it's fun, it's enjoyable, and you're both of you are always like smiling. And the only like negative emotions you get is like in a comical fashion when like a move doesn't go your way or you're getting OTK'd or something of that sort. But it's a real connection that you guys have that I can relate, because I've had those same things with my best friend when I ever play him. It's like we laugh at each other. It's like, oh my god, you sacked me, you mofo, that kind of thing. But we've all had those moments where we yell at each other, but we mean that in like an endearing and in fun way. We don't ever mean it, but it's like the kind of like a best friend camaraderie things. Like I remember there's always that meme where they always say like a good friend will help you like with a dead body. I don't know, something about a dead body, but like the best friend will help you hide the body, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever seen that meme before. I probably should show you that meme sometime. But that's just how it is. Like you and Mario are very close. I know that for sure. So that connection you have is like really genuine. It's
Yeah.
relatable, and it adds to the story so well. This is like a tale. It's a battle of titans. We want to see these two guys go at it with each other because there's like a human connection, a rivalry, if you will. And that's big in sports too. Rivalries are so huge in sports. And just like this, you guys have a fun rivalry going on. And again, spoiler alert for everybody who's watching again, you guys are now tied in the series, and it's winner take all practically for the next one out. So that's
Yeah.
going to be just brewing up. That's the big culmination of what the story is going to be for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting exciting.
Yeah. So we've gone on for a good 40 minutes of just woolly banter before we actually even got to the point of what this whole entire episode was supposed to be about. Wow. Just goes
Yeah.
to show you how long you and I can just keep talking for.
Oh, I know. It's a good thing you got us back on track.
It is. So the great thing about this episode is not only is this episode 44, which is my favorite number, Gate Guardian 44, that's what I'm known for. This is going to mark the end of season 2. And I just recently celebrated just doing my year anniversary of doing these podcasts. And 43 episodes later, this is where we're at this point in time. And we've run through a great cast of people that have been interviewed by me here, and one problem that you could find as a journalist is where, like, if you look at season one, I try to get some of the best of the best. Like Triff was there, Jesse Cotton was there, we had Farfa was there, Simo was there. Like Pack was there. Like we can name the list off of like all the big names that are on there. So once you get to the big names, it's like, do you kind of run out of big names at that point? And the answer is no. If you look at my season 2 guest list, it's still been very star-studded moving forward, with the exception of Simo because he was at the end of season 1. So, for example, we had Milano, we had Distant Coder on it. We had Fifth Rate Duelist, we had Tatsim, Team Overdose came back, Yu-Gi-Oh! History with Joe Girlando. Like, we have a lot of fantastic guests that kind of came through with these podcasts, even in season 2, just to show you that there's still like a lot of fantastic talent, players, and people out there that have been a part of this game. So I'm glad that there's been no shortage of quality guests that have been on my podcast.
Yeah, I mean it's been fantastic. I feel very lucky to know a lot of these guys personally, and I always love tuning in, hearing their stories. Always have good insight and just great conversation. So yeah, I'm very happy to do this, and I'm very interested in who you have for season 3 as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a big thing moving forward. I already have plans for my season 3 guests to come on, so I'm just working things out with them right now. But I want to dabble back to season 1 real quick because we didn't get to talk about this person when we did our end of year review podcast before, because this was after that, and I have to thank you so much for this one because you really helped me. I was able to get Simo on my podcast, and that was really huge because he was able to take out 2 hours of his time to collaborate with me and just run off a podcast. And again, I got to thank you for helping me getting that one.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, he's a crazy busy guy. He's got a lot going on. He was also doing Simo Media while doing his channel. He has, arguably the largest ongoing series with the history of Yu-Gi-Oh, the progression series. He's also still doing his set breakdowns, doing the ban list videos. Busy guy, always been yeah, I think one of the real faces of the community, and very deservingly so.
Yeah, I always feel honored when I can get like a big name guest like that to come on my channel, just because we know, as we mentioned at the very start, like these people have so little free time on their hands. So the fact that they can take out a couple hours of their week just to be able to do this for me is like, I'm incredibly grateful, because everyone I've talked to on here, they didn't have to do this. They didn't have to talk to me. No one had to talk to me. So the fact that they actually took out their time to be able to do this with me, like 2 hours, roughly everybody's at least an hour and a half, if not 2 hours, to be able to do this is absolutely fantastic. I feel really privileged that these people are understanding, the struggle I'm trying to go through when I do this, and take out the time to help me out. Because pretty much every single episode is a collaboration. I've yet to do anything that has been solo as far as the podcast goes. I've always tried to have somebody on because I don't want to ramble on for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and people just kind of get bored. That's why I always like to have somebody with me to kind of bounce things off of and keep fresh, which is why I always do these end of the year stuff or like these season reviews. And so I always want to have you on because it's always nice to bounce ideas back between somebody and keep things, fresh and not quite as boring.
I appreciate that, but I think you're a very interesting person. If you ever want to do one of these by yourself, I say go for it and have some fun.
I mean, I could. I really could. And I don't know. I haven't actually asked like the community if I should do one of my own yet. We'll see. Maybe something I might plan for April Fools or something like that come next year. But we'll get to that bridge when it comes to it. But right now, I do like the style of having every single guest on for every week, just to kind of keep things fresh and keep things different. And there's nothing wrong with having returning guests like you. You're the only person who's come on thrice now, which is fantastic to have it. And I know that you're very invested in my channel when you go look at all my podcasts. And again, we're very close friends, which is why I'm like, Ruggles, perfect person to have on to do these little reviews with. So again, thank you, buddy, for coming back on.
Oh, no problem. Again, always love it. Always have a great time.
Yep.
And yeah.
So one of the early season 2 guests that we had on that was a big success was, as we mentioned before, was we had Distant Coder that was on. And he was a really interesting guest because, first of all, I never had a guest that was on like the judging side of things. So first of all, that was one great thing to really get on. That's one topic that was great to touch on. And then he went off on like a giant rant about the Konami judging system about it, and it was just fire apparently, because he actually live streamed the podcast when he was going off, and the chat was just blowing up on it, and it was just kind of fun to see all that stuff happen. And it was just fun to just let the guests just go off and just talk and just really get his thoughts out, because not a lot of people will really like put out their real thoughts on their actual stream. They just try to keep up with the content that it is, but giving him a platform to be able to speak, it really went off, and a lot of people gave me a lot of positive reception with that podcast. And I know that was something that you listened to.
Yeah, I think that Kevin is honestly one of the best people at articulating their thoughts in an understanding way. I think that is a very touchy subject. Not a lot of judges probably want to dive into it, but he's been on that side. And I think that he has a lot of information. He speaks on it respectfully, but he also tells it how it is. And I think that's actually one of the larger reasons that his Twitch does as well as it does. He's just a very real guy, and he's a very informed guy. I think that he's a great entertainer in general. But I think that episode was something really different, and something a lot of the community would like to learn about it. I mean, judges have so much power, right? I mean, a lot of the way your standings in an event turn out is at some way changed by a judge call, right? And an impact that's had. I know that when I just started playing, there were a lot of scenarios where I probably should have called a judge, and it would have really altered things. So hearing that judges, might not always be correct, or the fact that Konami might even change an entire rule set to kind of protect the idea of a judge's ruling is kind of mind-blowing. Like, it's such a crazy thing, and it's not something you hear about. So I really commend him on just the honesty, but also the fact that when he talks about it, he does so mindfully of the system and the other judges as well. But yeah, I think that he has a very unique perspective, which is very healthy for the community here as a whole.
It really is. And in talking to him, it kind of reminded me a lot of where I had to hold myself accountable for mistakes that I've made. And I've made mistakes before as a judge as well, because that's what a main theme was on his podcast, was just judge accountability. It's like, okay, like, we understand that people make mistakes, but at least fess up. If you make a mistake, at least tell us that you made a mistake, so that way we can understand and kind of move on from it, instead of just kind of like hiding your tracks. Because I think he mentioned that like this is how we get like continental differences in rulings. Like, for example, like if I played MST and someone chained Call of the Hunted to bring back a Satellar Deneb, in North America, Deneb wouldn't get the effect, but in Europe, they would get the effect. And that could have been like a byproduct of just the judges just trying to cover their tracks and whatnot on an incorrect ruling. And I understand that, like some rulings that you don't really have a precedent over, you kind of have to make one on the spot. But sometimes if you make the wrong ruling, at least like kind of fess up with it afterwards. Because there was, when XYZ's came out, this was YCS Indianapolis, and I think it was 2012, and I went in there with TG Stun, and I had plants, but I'm going TG Stun. And then on the before the actual first round started, they made the ruling and said XYZ materials are considered to be on the field when they get detached. And when I heard that rule, I'm like, oh no, like I wouldn't have run TG Stun if that was the case, because I would have ran plants, because a TGU with a Sangan and an overlaid over and detached Sangan, that's free Sangan. It's easy to make. And it's like, I would have rather have done that instead of playing TG Stun. So I was just bewildered, and I was upset when they make that ruling. Of course, that can ruin an entire trip, because Indianapolis is a 10-hour drive from where I am. So I traveled 10 hours just for this, just for like a ruling change to really screw over my strategy that I've been testing really hard for. And all of a sudden this happens. It's like, oh, because I was testing against plants that didn't have that ruling. We were assuming that weren't on the field, because that's how it was supposed to be. And then they kept that on for a couple of months too afterwards, until they decided to change that ruling and go, oh no, okay, materials are no longer on the field. It's like, well, now I wish you did this before, or at least admitted to before, like after the event kind of thing.
Yeah, the fact that when you go to an event and you're told, to ask the head judge about a specific ruling because it may be ruled different regionally, or even just, YCS or regional to regional. Like that's kind of ridiculous. It does change your deck choice occasionally, I'm sure, as it
Yep.
happened with you. And I think there should be a more strict, widely known and accessible access to all of those rulings. I mean, again, we were talking about all of this in relation to Coder. His streams are in a lot of ways him teaching the audience, right? Like it's very informative, and the audience needs that information because it isn't necessarily readily available, because it isn't necessarily intuitive. They go to someone who is really smart, who is really informed, and it's great that his content there exists. And the again, the conversation you guys had was very eye-opening, but like it shouldn't need to be that way, right?
Yeah, it definitely should not. And when I talked to him, like he was really informative about everything he was doing. He told me about his new series that he was doing, and that was like he was explaining rulings in under a minute in like a really informative and fast way. Like again, quick audience retention. Like you don't have to spend a lot of time. It was doing fantastic with. I love it. And even though that a lot of the ruling videos he does now, I know about 90% of them that I've already knew them. It's like, okay, I already know the answer to this. I kind of play a little game with myself every time. It's like, because does my answer match up with his? But obviously not everybody knows as much as Coder and I do when it comes to rulings. So yeah, you have to report to everybody. It's like in the rule of journalism is pretend you're reporting to the farmer that's out in the middle of nowhere that has been like living under a rock for like the past 3 years. That kind of thing. That's what you have to do. And Coder does like a fantastic job of doing that, reporting to everybody. And he also said another thing as well in a rule in broadcasting that I think he criticized Konami's commentary team for doing this, but he said it doesn't matter if this is a new match and if you've explained this combo 8 times already, explain it again, because you can have new viewership into it reading this and they may not understand what is going on. You can't assume that your entire audience knows exactly what is going on, and you have to repeat it again and again. And when he said that, I remember I clapped my hands together and I was mouthing the words, thank effing God. He knows exactly what I've been trying to tell other people, is like, he knows what he's doing is exactly it. I do these things all the time when it comes to like hockey games, like football games that I do broadcasting for. It's like, yeah, you got to tell them again and again. I don't know how many times I've described what a screen pass is in football. I've done it every single game that I've done it, but you have to explain it because there's people who don't know what that is, and people who don't know like these certain rulings in general. I'm like, thank God he understands exactly what I'm talking about. Like this guy here, put him as a broadcaster, put him up there. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that, I mean, making things digestible is really important.
Yes.
Yeah, we got to see Farfa do some commentating at a YCS, I believe. I think it'd be a lot of fun to see both Kevin and Farfa. I think it'd be really funny. I think it'd be informative.
Yep.
And I think they'd be really good together.
Yeah, those two would be really good because you've got like Farfa who can kind of keep it entertaining, but can at least tell you what's going on, and then you've got Kevin who can tell you, like, who can kind of analyze all the plays, all like the rulings, the pro moves behind it, and go forward with it. Yeah, I think those two would be a fantastic team, a broadcast team, if they were to ever be together on an event. I agree with that. I never thought of it that way, but you make a very valid point on that regard.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I guess on the comedy note, have you watched any of Kevin's stream highlights as of late?
I've watched a couple of them. I haven't watched a whole lot, but I've definitely watched some of them for sure. And then, but a lot of what I do is I like to tune into his ruling videos just to see, just to keep myself fresh, because I've been a little bit more out of the loop, I guess we'll say, in like the past 5 years when it comes to rulings. I wasn't as strong as I was when I was like first into the game, because that was kind of my thing. And that's what I told him to. I'm like, I used to do a whole lot of rulings on my old channel when I was doing it. Then I kind of fell off a little bit, didn't do it as much. And with PSET, that also really kind of threw everything for a loop. But then he's since picked up the ball. But back to your point, that's really what I've been just kind of focusing on when I go to his channel.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's really what he's known for in general, very informative content. But you should
Mhm.
check out the Twitch clips. You're talking about how comical Nadir is, and he is. I think that's very much his brand in the community.
Mhm.
But Kevin's pretty funny, and the Twitch clips are good videos. It was also it ties back into the conversation we were having earlier about just new types of content and avenues in that way, talking about like the higher production side of things. But I think
Mhm.
that's something the Yu-Gi-Oh community has been missing is compilations of such. I mean, I think that's a huge thing for just about every other streamer, and it's cool to see that he's really putting an emphasis on it on his channel. I mean, MBT makes, I believe, the 10-minute testings and sometimes the one take testings and all of that, and he puts it, directly up from his stream to his YouTube with a little bit of editing, which
Yep.
is a really smart way of making content. Mario does something similar with his deck edits and
Mhm.
some matches. But I like that Twitch clips in itself is a new type of content. I think that's pretty entertaining. And
Yeah,
again, I think that's something Kevin is particularly pioneering within the Yu-Gi-Oh space right now.
it definitely is a very smart thing to do. And my podcast is heavily inspired off the Joe Rogan podcast, where he always brings in like a guest every single time, and they just talk about like a bunch of different topics and whatnot. And that's kind of what my podcast is about. But he also has like his own separate channel where he just puts out like just clips of certain topics and whatnot. So I mean, that's always like an easy way to just like rebrand your content. And that we also do that too with my work. We always do like in case you missed it articles. We always repost the articles again, just kind of say like it in case you missed it. That's the whole point. Like you can look at it again, kind of thing. It's just rebranding your content, and that's just more views you can get. And that's also a way of taking like a couple of minutes out of like an hour and a half podcast that I would have, and just condensing it into one small form, like easily accessible, just to go through that quick clip, and then that's it, and just move on. So really great way to rebrand it. And again, it's that audience retention, that same topic. We go right back to the start, and it's a really smart way of him doing that.
For sure. Yeah.
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 Really interesting.
Yeah. I know one other podcast that I had that you also had a hand in. You recommended me to him, but I knew him for a while, and I thought, okay, it's time to have him on now. We brought in Milano, and that
Yeah.
was that was a great example. We talked about video production, and we look at Milano. It looks like he's doing everything from like a very out of date phone, whatnot. The video, like I'm gonna say, this video production isn't quite the greatest, but the content is absolutely fantastic.
It's
Like it's
hilarious.
it's it's hilarious. It's enjoyable. That's a big reason why he's so popular right now. And I think he's fairly young as well. I think he's like in his. I can't remember if he's in his teens or in his very low 20s, but he's still fairly young in the game. And but he's been producing like wonderful content out there, which is just I just always laugh every time I hear it. It's like, yep, that's completely relatable. That's me. It's like, and we always just chuckle about it. But he's a great example of if you just have a good idea and you just have whatever makeshift tools you have, like you can be like a successful channel, and that's exactly what Milano is right now.
Yeah, we mentioned the DB grind earlier, but Milano's another excellent example of the fact where if you have the right personality for it, if you're inspired to do it, you can make something with next to nothing and do really, really well. His numbers are incredible. And I think that it's that people love Milano. I think that it's that he's hilarious. And, you don't, again, need the thousands of dollars of equipment if you
Mhm.
have the right thing. And I love that Yu-Gi-Oh! Vines were a thing. I wasn't playing during the time, but I'd watch them because they were 7 seconds and on
Yep.
YouTube, and like, oh, why not? And then that kind of died, right? Everybody stopped doing it.
Yep.
But then Milano was like, oh, you know what? I have this great idea, but it's not something I can make an 8-minute video out of.
Mhm.
So, screw it. I'll make a 30-second video and I'll put it
Mhm.
on Facebook because why not?
Yep.
And he got a lot of attention on Zodiac Duelist. Everybody thought it was hilarious.
Mhm.
And I remember Gannon and I just kept sending him messages like, hey, make a YouTube channel so we can like actually find this and share it with our friends because it is hilarious. And he
Yep.
did end up making the YouTube channel, and then it blew up and it was
Yep.
huge. And he's been doing great. He's also like he's such a big part of the Toronto community and like the Game Nation family, and it
Mhm.
even moves out farther. I mean, he again and Triff and Sam and another person who I'm not familiar with. I'm sure we all will be very
Yep.
soon. They're making their really big series now together. So it goes to show that you can start with a great idea, a great personality, and build it into something that gets you on Team Samurai X's
Yeah.
channel on a weekly basis, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I love Milano. Such a sweet card. Such
Mhm.
a sweet card. Such a sweet guy. We talk on Facebook semi regularly,
Yeah.
and it's always just good vibes.
Yeah, and I remember like seeing him at regionals. He was always such a jokester. I remember
Mm,
that faded regionals where you made your return. So this was November 30th, 2019. That faded Toronto regionals. I always make reference to that because that was the day where everything like for some reason all the planets kind of aligned and everything just happened in that one regional. So like your return was there, Crush Cards was there. That's when
yeah.
Milano like kind of for fun trash talk Dominic Couch and played him.
Yeah.
I was on the table beside him when that happened. I was actually going up against Triff that day. Funny enough, and that's where Triff topped that day with not using pendulums, and then Milano also came 8th place. Dominic Couch like topped that regional. Like everything like happened that regional, and I lost on the bubble to the Mustafa, who's now the Moose Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I lost to him because I didn't draw a single Orcus both games after getting deck checked. I'm like, I didn't play Mustafa, and I'm like, you won clean, you won fair. It just sucked that I didn't draw a single Orcus, but that's not your fault. I don't blame you for anything. It's just one of those like frustrating moments. It's like, oh, I want to top 8, but that it is what it is. If only it was an 8-round regional, then I would have topped. But oh well, that's the breaks. But that regional right there just kind of spawned everything, and that's where I really started to notice like Milano a lot, and finally tuned more into his stuff. And that's where I started laughing and like, okay, like I gotta have him on eventually. And then all the cards played down where, yep, it was time to bring him on. He was fun to talk to. He was so sincere in his podcast. He loved just being on it. I knew he
Yeah.
did. He
Yeah.
told after he was done, he told me how much fun, how much love he had. He's like, I gotta spread this around because I love this channel. Like, I love what you're doing so much, and like I gotta like this was. He said it in a tweet. Like my channel is, it's criminally criminal that like it's not getting enough recognition. I'm like, I thanked him so much for that, and he really get me a lot of subs on that. So like I'm really indebted to Milano for the help that he's had, and he's done a wonderful job for himself so far, just to show. And again, it goes back to proving that you don't need a $1,500 equipment just to make like a really great channel, and that's exactly what he's doing right now.
Yeah. Wonderful kid. Funny
Yep.
kid.
Funny
And
kid.
someone who's I think got a great future in what we're doing here.
Yeah. Now, just imagine how great his videos would be if he ups his video production and like gets into that a little bit more. It would be fantastic to see like what would go forward with him if he does that. But for now, like he's doing a great job of what he's doing now. Just imagine. It's like he's winning with appliances right now. He's winning regional appliances. Just think of what happens if you put him with like a full out Tri Brigade deck. What would happen then?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
I do want to mention though, I think that Milano's content is content that almost thrives off of the low quality recordings. Like that in itself is funny. Like it's comical to not see everything in HD. You see something it's like 720 or 480. Like that in itself is like, what? It's 2021. Why am I watching? Like what is it? Why is it like that? Like that in itself, I think is a good introduction comically. And so I'd also like to know, like if you're making something, don't feel like, especially if it's comical, you need even a very modern phone, because you don't, because different atmospheres for videos require different equipment, and the quality is something you should consider as well.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like what it is. It's basically Yu-Gi-Oh! Vines like reinvented with Milano. That's what it is. Like Vines don't have to be like excellent quality, video quality. I don't like it's amateurish, but for lack of a better word, but that's what he's supposed to play off as you said. Like that's kind of part of the gimmick as well, and that's definitely a gimmick for sure. Some people's gimmicks are just being boring. I think like Thunderpants Alex Vance he said like for people who watch The Office, Dwight Schrute, like his whole persona is supposed to be kind of like that dull, boring, like to the book, like uptight guy. But that's it. Being boring is entertaining, as ironic as that sounds. If you can do it right. If you could, and not saying Milano's boring, but doing the quote unquote low quality stuff is what makes him look so good, with including the content that he's doing now. So that's a great way. I didn't think of it that way before. Now that you brought it up, that's actually a really good shtick that he's running with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Vines kind of thing.
Yeah, think about like Farfa, right? and his just absolute love for images, videos, sound clips just getting worse and worse. Like
Yeah.
there's the KEKW, and he had it sent to him like 100 times, and every time it would lose quality and lose audio, and then there was just massive bass in it, and it was just it got so awful. But like every time it got more funny, and it
Yeah.
just goes to show that a loud equals funny,
Yeah.
obviously, but
Yeah.
also low quality
Yeah.
equals funny. Again, not to say that what Milano does is low quality. Just the fact that I think the fact that he isn't shooting in like 4K actually does aid his content.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it too, and that's kind of the thing we see with a lot of like Farfetch's videos. If there's like maybe like him doing like loud yelling, and then it's like a big like blown up zoom in of like a picture or a video clip that kind of like shakes and it's all pixelated. Like that's part of the shtick. That's part of the
Yeah,
gimmick, which kind of makes it so funny, and it kind of keeps it on like a very like relaxed atmosphere. It's not it does he's not trying to be like professional in the sense where it's like he's like straight uptight like where like, like me out like you could like envision like my channel with like kind of like a bow tie suit trying to be like very professional, very preppy, where Farfa might be a little bit more like comedic, loose, that kind of thing, and then having the quote unquote pixelated like video and pictures like adds to that persona. So it's a great way of him just kind of moving his channel forward, and like we've seen that success from Farfa.
yeah, for sure. And again, to anybody listening, if you're a Farfa fan, there is a podcast with him and Bowie on this channel.
It is true, and I know I've mentioned this last time, and I'll mention it again. I remember when I was doing he live streamed this episode, and when I was doing my intro, he just mocked me. And when I said his name on it, introducing him in, he zoomed in on him and tapped his brain as if it was like no brainer kind of thing. And he even interrupted me. He was the only person who actually interrupted me during my intro because he wanted to make an addition to the intro that I gave him, because I always try to build up every single guest that I introduced in, and he decided I'm gonna add a little extra on top of this there. And then knowing when that he did that, I'm like, I know I'm in for a wild ride talking to Farfa, because we all know that's the kind of character he is when he's on stream, and it's like walking in you don't walk into a fire and expect not to get burned, and I'm not gonna go talk to Farfa and not expect to be made fun of at least once in some way, shape, or form. I laughed it off. It was funny, absolutely it was, but that's just what you expect from him.
Yeah, I think he kind of gets a little bit of a bad rap in the community from people who don't necessarily know his content well.
Yeah.
I think that he says a lot very comically, and not everybody recognizes that, at least initially. But if you really get into his live streams, I think there's a lot to love.
Yeah, it definitely is, and that's a big reason why he's so successful, because he's unapologetically himself. He
For
just
sure.
loves to be this
Yeah.
joker, loves to be this fun guy, but he isn't by no means like he's not dumb or anything. He's actually very intelligent, and he knows exactly what he's doing when he's doing all this. He
Yeah.
knows what he's doing, so like I'm not underestimating him one bit at all when he does this. This was a story that when I was much younger in high school, this is what my priest told me, and he told me that the jester in a kingdom is actually the smartest person, because they're the only ones that can talk to the king like candidly. They can tell them whatever they want without fear of being it disguises humor. But that's what kind of I always said Farfa is kind of like the jester. He's the fool. He might be like portraying stuff in like a really odd or funny way, but he's not stupid at all in any way, shape, or form. He knows exactly what he's talking about. He knows how to put it out there, and he's actually very quite intelligent. So like I don't take whatever he is for granted. I would not underestimate that man one bit, despite the humorous humorous nature that he puts out for everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
He's a smart guy, and
Yeah,
I don't think he gets the credit for it all the time, but that's okay.
yeah.
I think
That's what.
he believes in himself, and that's
Yeah,
good.
that's why we don't underestimate the fool ever. The fool, and the fool being the jester, and that's him. That's what I've always regarded him as. I will always regard him to be that way. So I just wonder what would happen if him and I ever played each other in a match. Well, but that could happen in the near future. Who knows? But for now, that's what I'm gonna hold him to that high regard anyway. And I don't know if you ever played him before.
Ah, we played a a very comical game in the YouTuber Grand Championship where
Ah,
he killed me
yes.
with the Winged Dragon of Ra. But have we ever played like a legitimate match? I don't know that we have. I don't
Okay.
think we have actually.
All
No.
right. Fair enough. Fair enough. I was just curious, just so I can at least get an idea of his dueling skill, aside from just seeing Team Samurai X1 just launch Zeus on him every single match.
That really is how it
That
is.
really.
Yeah. Oh man.
Um, and then great. Also, like a great thing with my podcast now is like I started to branch out more to a lot of international guests just outside of North America. Like for example, I had Andreas Torres, who is arguably like one of the best players out in South America, who's also like made waves here in North America. Great guy to talk to. He's kind of doing a lot of stuff back home where like a lot of underprivileged kids who don't have as access to Yu-Gi-Oh cards as we in North America do. Great guy to talk to, great player. I always love watching all his deck lists and play. And then we also had, as you said, we had Paulo Gonçalves on my podcast too. Always with the opening of Fala Galera, which I learned which just means "What's in Portuguese, and I know that you know him quite well, if I recall correctly, as you told me beforehand.
Well, I'm very aware of him. I think that through quarantine, through all of the online tournaments, he made himself very known. He continuously, like very continuously, did extremely well. I think more so than really anyone else, and I think he really put his name on the map. I think that because of all of that, he eventually started working with Duelist Academy, which is
Mhm.
arguably one of the uh, greatest, I don't know, signs of skill, I guess. I mean, the fact
Mhm.
that they'd like invite you on and be a member of that group, I think is huge. So yeah, I think he's really proven himself over the COVID times, which is something that's really impressive. I mean, so many great players just decided not to play or to not put as much of a focus on the game until cards come back, and therefore they kind of lost out on like 2 years of Yu-Gi-Oh, right? That's a lot of
Mhm.
formats, that's a lot of potential fun. But I think Paulo is someone who is a great example of, what, we don't have the best hand right now worldwide, and I'm going to make the best of it. And he really did. He did fantastic continuously.
Yeah, absolutely, he did. And I think, if I recall correctly, he won, I think, 3 events in a row, or he won like 3 events in a span of like a month, something of that. It was an extremely
Yeah.
insane stat that nobody else could. And he did it. So that was one reason why I brought him on. And then the other reason why I brought him on, outside of his notoriety, is that he also won like the recent like 3v3 like LCS tournament. And I had his teammates Gabriel Netz and Christian Thomas on as well on the podcast before that, who are also, again, not from North America, one's from Europe, one's from South America. So kind of really expanding into that international look of having these two guys on. And I know that I didn't really know Gabriel and Christian like that well. Like, of course, I did my research on them, but that was really one of the different podcasts that I did where we actually just strictly focused on more of the meta rather than actually of them. Like, of course, I talked
Yeah.
about them in general, but we really gave like a deep analysis on like the actual meta itself and like why they ran those decks. And that was like a refreshing change of pace. I know for some people out there who just wanted to just podcast about like just meta in general, just not about just them and not about people per se, but just about the actual like full game in itself, like current game. And I think it was like a good podcast to kind of just take a break from what I typically did and just kind of analyze the game with it, because I was kind of out of the game too for a while at that point, because I wasn't too familiar with like all the decks that were out there. Like I wasn't familiar with Dragon Link or Eldritch at that time, so like having them on like really helped me kind of cycle through and learn those decks as they won the LCS.
Yeah, and I think they and that whole scenario was so interesting because it wasn't necessarily just asking yourself, what's the best deck, what, is intuitively the best option here or there, but they were really thinking out of the box with the Verte play, right? They
Yes.
played Verte Anaconda, but they didn't play Dragoon. And through the entirety of the tournament, I remember watching a bunch of live streams, people talking about it, just like questioning, like, was it a mistake? Did he forget? Keck W, right?
Yep.
Um, no, it was a very targeted move to bait out things like Torrential Tribute. And that's brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
to be able to do that and then play the way you want to, knowing that they are probably going to respond to their trap because they assume if they don't, Dragoon's coming. Like, it was just such a brilliant out of the box idea, and I
Mhm.
think they were great guests to have on.
Yeah, it really was, and it kind of reminds me of an example of like an old school example of, let's say, like Spirit Reaper or Don's Luke attacking your opponent directly. Everybody knows that when that card is attacking you directly, you have to do whatever it is at all costs to stop this. Because if you don't stop this, you're going to be in a hole with when it happens, and that's kind of the same way with Anaconda. It's like if I don't stop this Anaconda from happening, then like I'm going to be like on the back end of things very quickly. So them like playing with that mentality, like bluffing their way through it, I thought was brilliant, and like I think they deserve that win and deserve to be on the podcast because of that alone, and it worked like to perfection.
Oh yeah, strongly agree.
Yeah.
Really, really smart guys, and happy they had the online platform to really show it off in a way that they might not have had the event been IRL and not streamed and all of that. So yeah,
Yep.
kudos to them.
Yeah, and it was really wonderful having them on. And as I mentioned before, they won the luxury championship series, 3v3, and which was being run by Hani Jawari, which I also had on my podcast. Great guy to talk to. Very respect his play a lot. He's a great player, and he's decided, okay, I'm gonna stop playing for a while to help run these tournaments because I knew that there were a lot of complaints with Konami and the remote duels because of how agonizingly long those tournaments took. And when I had talked to a lot of people playing the LCS, they told me, no, this ran a lot more smoother. This ran a lot more quickly. Like I still had time to do stuff during the day after the tournament was done, as opposed to remote duels, where I had friends up until like 2, 3 a.m. waiting for events to finish up just because of it. So so having the LCSs was like a great alternative for players to really play competitively and just be there, especially in the middle of a pandemic where all of us are really Yu-Gi-Oh starred, but didn't have a lot of outlets to be able to play the game.
Yeah, for sure. And on the note of Honey, like unfortunately, I've never had the chance to talk to him, but I think there was again this big 200-ish man regionals or person regionals this weekend, and I believe he actually topped day 2 today, the day in
Mm-hmm.
which we are talking.
Yeah.
So he's playing again, and that's pretty cool because I do feel like he has a real name in the community for putting on these larger events and offering that to the player base. But
Yep.
it's nice to see that he's also getting out there, having fun, and finding some real success as well.
Yeah, it's great to see that you can see a player just take time out and do something for the community, like the LCSs, and then when he comes back, it's practically as if he didn't skip a beat, and he's still out there topping events. He's just also a champion as well. He's a YCS champion, so we all know that he's a fantastic player in his own right, and he's no pushover at all. And to see them that he's kind of giving back to the Yu-Gi-Oh community, and then when he actually goes play, he can still throw down, and that's just a really good story to see that when you see somebody give back to the community so much and then be able to have success when they do play the game. It's always just a nice story to just to look at for everyone.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of really great kind of comeback stories post pandemic. I mean, seeing guys like Jesse Cotton or
Mm-hmm.
Asala or
Mm-hmm.
any of them find their way back to events, Ryan Levine, and start taking those down. Like I know that Asala recently found some great success with an online tournament. That was really nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we're going to get a lot of really exciting events, seeing these players playing, taking the wins, and
Mm-hmm.
getting back to what they love.
Yeah, absolutely it is, and it's great news for America that they can like, go back to playing like in real life again soon in July 15th. So that's really great news for them. Not so much for us here in Canada, but Konami did say that they're going to monitor the situation, what it is in other places and other countries, and decide then. So we'll take that with a grain of salt, if you will. But there's light at the end of the tunnel now that we at least see something in America opening up. So for everyone else that isn't American, just hold on a little bit longer. It's gonna come back for sure. And at least now, at least in Ontario, I'm allowed to have a couple friends over to my place. Like we can just go play in my back sunroom, and we can play some in real life Yu-Gi-Oh. I did that, I think about last week, and all my friends that I invited, they're like, "Bowie, thank you so much for doing this. Like we have been missing this so much. Like I haven't seen this guy in so long, this guy in so long, etc. And I'm so glad you were able to arrange this because like I really miss playing with everybody. Because like there are a lot of introverts in Yu-Gi-Oh in the game that really
Yeah.
only come out just to play Yu-Gi-Oh and that's it. And then maybe just go back to hiding or whatnot. So being able to put them in a very like secure, safe space where they can relax and be with people that they've never seen in a while. I think a lot. I think I speak for a lot of people to say that that's just something a lot of us are craving once we can get back to normal.
Oh yeah. Again, I think it's very therapeutic for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I I feel like I work a lot. Feel like a lot of YouTubers, a lot of us work a lot,
Mhm.
and having that block of time in the week where you do go and you just play cards and hang out with your friends,
Yeah.
it's a great break that we might not have made for ourselves otherwise. So I know that I'm personally really excited about it. I'm probably going to wait until I get my second shot,
Yeah.
but that shouldn't be too far away.
Yeah, it isn't far away from where we are right now because everybody's starting to get their second shot in. My parents just got theirs today, so that's kind of moving
Oh,
forward. Although both of them are
congratulations!
yeah, both of them are like senior citizens technically because they're oh well, my mom's almost not quite 65, but my dad's over 65 now, so they're senior citizens pretty much in that case, so they can have the vaccine a little bit earlier. But pretty much like people our age now can start getting that second shot. So I'm sure that many people want to get that so they can get that sense of normalcy. I'm at that point where it's like, just if this is what I have to do to be able to get my normalcy, just give it to me right now. Give it to me, and then so I can get on with my day.
Yeah,
That's where I stand on that. So not to get too political about it, but that's just my personal stance, and I'm sure a lot of people kind of feel that same way. We just want normalcy back.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So one other thing I wanted to talk to you about was I probably touched about it before when we've already talked about it, but it was just and it was this was a topic on one of my podcasts that I had. It was just getting yourself noticed on on YouTube. Well, I remember again going back to that ill-fated regionals again. We had this. There was this picture that you took with Team Samurai X1, and it was an endorsement of you, understandably so, because I would have done the same thing if I was in his position. And I think like, and I feel like that was also a point where like you really like blew up as well. Like you really started to get like a lot more fame than what you already had at that point. Like you were already popular as it was, but that day when he made that picture, like I saw you just pretty much become an overnight sensation in that case with Sam in that picture. And then after going to your channel, it's like, yeah, this. Oh my God, Ryan's pumping out just incredible content at it. And that's just a theme that a lot of people just like the middling channels just have is just being recognized. Is just being known by it. There's like a lot of I'm sure there's a lot of great channels out there that just aren't known. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of like dime a dozen channels that's like kind of meh, whatever. So uh, is there any advice that you would give for people who would be like, let's say my situation, because like I would say I'm kind of like middling, trying to get more popular. That would be in my situation that are trying to get like break through and just get known more.
Yeah, I think what you need to do, I think there are a couple of things.
Yeah.
So, first of all, you make sure that you like the content you're making. I think that's
Yep.
the most important thing. Otherwise, you end up burning out, and it doesn't matter if you get popular because you're not going to be doing what you're doing for a long time anyway.
Hmm.
So, number one, make sure you like what you're doing. Number two, make it frequently. That way, you're improving all the time. I never like to make the same thing more than 5 times. I always like to find one way to iterate, make it a little bit better, change things up.
Hmm.
That way, it's not stagnant. And that way, when luck meets the opportunity, then you have the chance to really take off. Because if somebody finds you, if say Farfa's on stream or Coder or MBT, and they're just scrolling through YouTube and they find, oh, there's a Yu-Gi-Oh video, and they click it, if it's fantastic, then maybe they'll subscribe. Maybe they'll watch you again on their channel. Maybe they'll tell all of their viewers to go check you out. I've seen Farfa do that 100 times. I've seen Coder do that.
Hmm.
It's when all of that hard work you put in meets that lucky opportunity. I always tell everybody I got very lucky. I made 2 videos, and then Farfa watched me on stream. He liked it a lot. He tweeted it out. Doug watched it. He tweeted it out. Simo, Sam, like the whole 9 yards, and they all like kind of came together
Hmm.
and helped. And that's just extreme luck, but it was because what they saw they really enjoyed and they felt the need to evangelize it to some degree.
Mhm.
So I think you need to make something that can really wow people
Mhm.
to kind of get within that same lucky zone, if that makes any sense. But you do
Yeah.
need to constantly improve to get there.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're doing something repeatedly and you're just not finding success with it and you can't find ways to improve on it in a great way, I think
Mm.
you do need to go back to the drawing board, try something else out, look at the algorithm, look at how your audience retention is. If you feel like people are dropping off in the first minute,
Mhm.
figure out why that is, figure out how to make it more interesting, whether it be your editing, whether it be kind of your opening statements. I think that's really important. Playing the algorithm game when nobody likes to hear it is so bloody important.
Mhm.
I have the painting channel, which you know about, but for anybody who doesn't, it's called Stay Creative Painting. I'm about to get 300,000 subscribers on it. It's my main job in quotation marks,
Mhm.
but there have been so many times where views on it have been fantastic, and then YouTube announces an algorithm change, and then they are bad. And then I have to change the way I'm doing it, the timing of the videos, kind of the hook to it, and then it gets back to fantastic. And then the algorithm changes, and then it gets bad. And it's like, okay, you know what? We'll change
Mhm.
it again. So the idea that if something isn't working and you've done it 5, 10 times, iterate, try something different, make sure it's something you still enjoy, but doing something for 4 years that just isn't working
Mhm.
isn't something I'd recommend. I think a lot of people just get comfortable and say, oh,
Mhm.
one day I'll get lucky. But that one day might not come. And you kind of might just have to force it and play the algorithm game, because you can play
Yeah.
the lucky game, but you can
Mhm.
also play the algorithm game, and maybe you'll get real lucky and they'll come together. But it's iteration, it's constantly working on things. It's um, just ensuring that you enjoy what you're doing. And collaborations are also really good.
Yeah.
Collaborations are really, really good.
Mhm.
Which
And go
Sorry,
ahead, sorry.
which is great for your channel because you collaborate with somebody every episode.
That's exactly what it is. I know. And to further your point, giving anecdote. After I did my podcast with Simo, we talked for a little bit afterwards, and I told him, I wanted to make this kind of like a Christmas special because that's when the podcast was being released. And he told me, you know what? I was planning to release it around this time. He's like, no, why don't you put it on like Christmas break, put it on like the 23rd, put it on that day and put it out in the morning, not at like 2 a.m. at night where not a lot of people are going to view it. And then it's going to get lost in the algorithm and then you're not going to get as many views.
Yeah.
And he told me, do it in the morning. I'm like, okay, I did it in the morning. And granted, he did tweet about it. He did mention it, and it is by far my most popular podcast in terms of views. But I put it at the time that he said, and I noticed that a lot of when I put my podcast at a more like regular time, they seem to do a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I took that a little bit more to heart now. So now I try to put out my podcast every Monday night, and now I'm trying to put out my every news segments every Friday morning. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do. Trying to be consistent now with the way I post things. I'm not trying to put my news series at the same time as my podcast because I don't want them grouped together and it gets easier lost that way. It's easier to kind of spread it out a little bit so people can like be more exposed to my content over a longer period of time. And I think that's a lot of mistakes that a lot of like the rookie YouTubers make and trying to get recognized is that they don't get on the algorithm because of the irregular times that they post.
Yeah, again, it is the algorithm game, and you can go into your YouTube studio, your analytics, and look at your views as a whole and individually with videos and see at which hour in the day videos are consistently getting views just through the recommendations, through people
Mhm.
being up, checking their sub feeds, all of that. And that is really important. With Sealed Only 1v1, Mario and I actually tried going for a different hour every week and just watching how it changed.
Yeah.
And we figured out that we really liked 8 p.m. EST, that we ended up getting a lot of views there because you would have like a 4 hour window that night where you get a lot of views, and then
Mhm.
it kind of dampens a little bit. And
Yep.
then it has a real pickup starting around 10 a.m. And then you get that like 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is all EST, by the way.
Mhm.
And we just found that having those two bumps really helped it with the algorithm.
Yep.
So we are very targeted with that. And also note, you noted that you have one video go up on Monday and Friday.
Yep.
I avoid Friday, Saturday like the plague.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
feel like people are busy on the weekend, especially Saturday. That's when they're out, they're having fun. Obviously, the pandemic has changed that over the last 2 years, but that is
Yeah.
going to change again soon, especially in the summertime.
Yeah.
So if Mario and I are working on sealed only 1v1 and I'm aiming for, say, Wednesday, and I just don't hit it, and we say, okay, we'll move it to Tuesday, and I'm still not done, we won't post on, Thursday. We won't post Friday. We won't post Saturday. We won't post Sunday. We'll come back on Monday or Tuesday, just because people are on the computer more. And then the algorithm picks up on what it's doing, and it works through momentum, right? So if you post on, say, Friday, then on Saturday, you are going to get less views because it's the weekend, probably. It's always content dependent. This isn't like a cheat sheet for everyone. Check your own analytics and how it works, but this is just what we found through looking at our data. And so Saturday, bad. Sunday, even worse. Monday, great. Everybody is back from school or work and they just want to relax at the end of the day and watch something. And Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to some extent are similar. So by avoiding Friday or Saturday, Sunday, you get to have continuously good days in the algorithm, which will continue to push your video more. So this isn't me telling you, by the way, to not post on Friday. Again, look at your data, look at your numbers. But we found very much that posting on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays was a long-term bad for the videos because the follow-up days were just fairly weak, as were the initial uploads. So again, it's playing that algorithm game. There's so much to it, and the algorithm always changes, so you do have to stay informed. It is a meta, essentially.
Of course.
And like I know we're getting pretty deep into this, and I don't know who's all that interested in it, but if you are a content creator, do consider the days, do consider the times, and make sure you're watching your analytics.
That's good advice, because now I might have to start moving my news now to Thursdays, because I don't want to do it on the weekend, because usually a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh stuff happens on the weekend. So I want to try to do it like before, but maybe you could have a point now, because if I do it on Thursdays instead, that means people have a couple days to prepare. Like, oh, okay, it's happening on this weekend. Okay, I have a day or two to plan for it, as opposed to being Friday morning. It's like, oh, I only have like one day to prepare for it. So you might have a point, and I might have to take your advice into heavy consideration here if that's going to help my reach moving forward. So I appreciate that advice.
No problem. Again, sorry for getting so niche. I don't
don't worry.
Do that on your podcast, but I think it's helpful.
Hey, you're helping me, and you're helping everyone else that's listening out there that's also trying to get into the Yu-Gi tubing world. So no, it's completely welcome. And I know this was a theme that I also had on one of my podcasts that I had with Alex Vanson, probably aka Thunderpants. And to me, this was one of the most surprising podcasts that I had this season, just because I didn't expect the kind of conversation we had to go in the direction that did. And we talked heavily about just getting noticed in the Yu-Gi-Oh scene, not necessarily in like the Yu-Gi tubing scene per se, but just in Yu-Gi-Oh in general. Because I remember way back when things were back on like metagame.com, if you remember that site, you're pretty sure you were playing during that time when it was around. Like they would do like all the feature matches and everything like that. And I could remember all of the Shonen Jump champions. I could remember a whole vast majority of them. If you told me names now of like a YCS champion, it's like if you put it like, give me like this name, it's like, is this person a YCS champion or not? I'd be like, I don't know. I'd be guessing at this point in time. For like over half of them, I'd be doing that. And you can be a champion and you could still not be known in the game. And he told me about like you have to kind of develop like a persona. You have to develop some kind of uniqueness to really get yourself noticed. Like, you know, like MCole 40 has his niche, like Farfa's got his niche, Distant Coda's got his niche, you've got your niche. We all have this like unique quality that kind of makes it into our own. And you know, and if you're not, you get lost in the woods and like lost in the grass and everything like that, and you're not going to be known. And that's of course like one of the biggest challenges of like being a YouTuber is just getting known.
Yeah, for sure. And to really add to that, kind of funny, I wasn't really playing when Alex Van Sant was more in his prime, at least popularity wise, but I did know him. And why was that? Because he was a Yu-Gi-Oh player with great hair and he looked pretty buff. And I was like, that doesn't look like a Yu-Gi-Oh player. And I watched his video. I was like, oh, he's really funny. And
Yeah.
like immediately there was so much to like there. So yeah, you when we were talking earlier about things that differentiate you, we were talking about Coder with knowledge of the name or name knowledge of the game. Farfa with being comical. We're talking about my B-roll, your experience with journalism. But I mean, even physical appearance and like, there's so much that can go into it, building a personality and
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot. But I think that Alex was a really interesting, fun thing to find in
Yeah.
a time when I wasn't playing Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, and even physical presence can even have make a difference. Like we all know like the joke of M Cole 40 doing his version of like the truffle shuffle being topless, and then I think there was a photo not too long ago where MBT also was topless doing like a big flex pose, and that's got him a lot. Not that he wasn't popular before that, but it also really helped in his popularity. And I also know he also struck a milestone as well in subs. So congrats to him, by the way. He's someone I'm trying to work on getting on, by the way, in the near future. And again, this goes back to me saying, well, the lists of like really great guests, it has not depleted in any sense of the word. Like there's still a whole lot of great people that I can get on the podcast for season 3. So again, he's definitely one of them for sure. But that just goes to show that, whatever you can do to kind of like impose yourself into the Yu-Gi-Oh world and like make a presence known, like there's so many different ways you can do it. It's just a matter of like, can you get there? Can you do it? And again, like and I won't forever forget that picture of MBT now being topless doing that flex. I will not forget that picture ever now. It's ingrained in my mind. I don't know about you, but it's in my mind.
I adore the narrative that shirtless MBT is what made MBT popular, and
Yeah.
I don't care at all if it's true.
Mhm.
It's what we're going with from now on.
Yeah.
It was an iconic picture,
Yeah.
100%.
Very iconic, and it made me laugh when I saw it. So 100%. I don't want to just say that's what he's known for, but I will definitely be reminded of that every time I hear his name moving forward. Like I know he's got the history of Yu-Gi-Oh with Simo, which is a great series, fantastic to watch. But I will definitely remember him for his topless flex for forever and ever, for hopefully as long as I live. So definitely, again, great guest. I'm sure I can get him on. I'm trying to work on Nim Nim, but funny story with Nim Nim. I messaged him on his stream, and he said, "Yeah, sure. Just go to Discord, and this is my code, and message me on there." So I did. But when I messaged him on Discord, it said, "This person will not accept messages unless you're your friend." Try to send him a friend request, and it's been months later, and he still hasn't accepted it. And I've tried to message him again a couple times, but nothing doing. So funny guy with Nim Nim about his organization with the progression series, if you recall what I'm referencing.
Yeah, with the folder and the screenshots. I do know what you're talking about, the bus ticket.
Yeah.
That said, I know that Gage does a lot with his clothing brand
Yeah.
that he's working on. He does work full time at a card shop. He's doing the Yu-Gi-Oh thing. He's got a lot going on, and I know that he is feeling really burnt out right now.
Yeah,
So
understandably so.
that's somebody I'd wait a couple of months for him to, just kind of recuperate a little bit.
Yep.
And I know that he's going to start doing a lot more vlogging. I mean, he's at all of these events, he's making the videos.
Mhm.
So I'm sure that someday you'll get to talk to him, and I'm sure it'll be a
Yeah.
great conversation. But I think that he's definitely one who should be forgiven for being a little absent-minded here and there. I know that
Uh,
I am. I know that I
yeah.
am, and I
And
know that he's very burnt out as well.
Yeah, and that's fair, and that's why I don't really hark on anybody at all who has to either decline or say that they'll have to get back to me and maybe not get back to me, because I understand that the amount of work that goes into these YouTube channels, it's a lot of work. And even though I would call myself more of a part timer doing these things, because I only spend like 1 day a week, and that's just me doing the podcast, and maybe another day of just editing it and putting it all together for the next day, and that's about it. Where I know that like when I talk to Crush Cards all the time, they tell me about how much time they've got to spend like with doing this video, staying up, and then they run a Patreon, so they got to be up for several other hours doing this stuff with all their fans and whatnot, which is commendable. Like, it's great by them that they're really being a part of the community. I love them so much, and I haven't even met them yet, but I love them so much already. But I know that they commit so much time to it, so I understand that, like, time's of the essence with these guys, and you gotta be really patient with them. And I'm sure that when you get patient with them, it'll pay off. Because I messaged Simo at the very start of when this all happened, when my podcast started. He didn't get back to me, and I understand it. He's a busy guy, and it wasn't until, again, when you messaged him and put your endorsement for me to him, is when he finally decided, okay, I should maybe take this guy a little bit more seriously. Let's actually see what's going up. And then it kind of went uphill from there for me. So that was a great little bounce. So I don't blame anybody at all. I've also had a podcast where I was supposed to get ready 5 minutes before it happened. The guy said, "I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm so busy right now." And then I haven't had a chance to talk to him again about doing the podcast for it a while. So, and like, these things happen, and it happens in journalism all the time for me. So I don't have any like ill regard for anyone who has to say no or has to back out or anything like that, because life gets in the way. And I just feel grateful enough that people are just taking the time out to even just do this with me.
Yeah, and I mean, like, to be very honest about it, you've probably heard me today in this podcast misspeak or use an improper word or stutter a little bit, which, if you watch my series, isn't something I normally do. But it's just been one of those weeks where, like, every hour you're working and the mind is just so melted that I'm going to be honest. Like, if anyone else asked me to do the podcast this week specifically, it would have been I can't. Like, no way. I made the exception because it's you, and I knew that it would be a little bit rough. But I figured, we're boys and we could make it work, and you could lead the conversation and do a good job, which you obviously have been. But I know exactly what you mean in terms of just not having time. And I think I've been on your podcast now 3 times. I think I've done a podcast with one other person, and then there are 10 that I had to say no to. But that really is how it is. I think if, for the most part, content creators said yes to every opportunity they had, they wouldn't actually have time to make any content. If that makes any sense. It's totally just fair. It's part of the trade. But I'm sure someday you'll get Gage, and I'm sure it'll be a fantastic conversation. Really, really funny guy.
Yeah, it definitely is, and that's how I feel. He brings a lot of humor to the progression series, especially when Kalut gets dropped. That's what everybody anticipates at this point in time, when just seeing Kalut drop and just Nim just freak out. And I can't blame him, because I hate Black Wings too when it came out. So and I had people steal wins on me just because, like, they go, yeah, double Kalut for game, no, triple Kalut for game, and I don't account for it. I was like, oh my god, it's like, I can't believe I just lost a triple Kalut. It's a very sneaky way to win games, so I empathize with him greatly doing that. I played Flamvels when Black Wings were out, so I was just hoping my Flamvel Fire Dog, which was 1900 attack, could beat over the Shura without fear of Kalut. I'm like, don't have Kalut beat over it, and like the payoff would be like, if this pays off, I'm gonna be like money. I'm gonna be money so badly when this happens. And I also hated Icarus attack too. That was the one, the trap. I always played around that trap every single time I played against a Blackwing player, because I hate that card so much, and it was such a huge game changer back then in the day. So I'm like, nope, I'm playing around this card. And until I had like a Solemn Judgment or a Trap Stun ready to fire off to stop it, I'm like, go ahead, search with Whirlwind all you want, but once I find a way to crack you, like, you're done. But that's how I felt every time I played Black Wings anyway. But I hated, so I empathize much with Gage. I can't remember if you were playing during that time or if you had stopped at that point.
I had completely quit before Black Wings had really come out and done their thing. And then I got back into the game after they were essentially irrelevant. So I never had to play against Kalut with Kalut. However, I did rejoin the game, pick up heroes, and I've definitely won 4 more games than I should have with Honest Neos and that damage depth 2500 extra attack. It's it's pretty funny, but I get where the frustration comes from.
And hey, and me knowing you personally, I know that there's I will leave them unnamed, but I know there's one person in Belleville who refuses to play any other deck right now other than Black Wings. And I'm just wondering if you've come across him like at all recently playing him and playing against his Black Wings. If you know who I am talking about.
I do know exactly who you're talking about. I did play a game. Well, the first time I actually went to locals, he was playing Orcust.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I luckily got the win because I was main decking Super Polys. But then the last time we played, I was playing Striker Trains because it had just won the regionals that you continuously reference in at the end of November. I saw that. I was like, that's such a funny deck. I have to pick that up. So I did, and I brought it to locals, and Jim and I played. I just said his name. Hi, Jim. Yeah, I feel like we have to give him a shout out. We have to give him credit. Jim's been such a big member of the Belleville community forever. I remember when I was like a little kid, I was playing at the Trending Card Shop, and Ryan Kane, Josh Tremere, Jim, and Tom, they were all essentially like, hey, you actually know how to play the game. You're actually pretty good. You should come to the actual tournaments where, you know, you can win credit and do all of that. So Jim was always a really big part of that. I feel like I grew up with Jim being, you know, like a older, influential male in my life. And, you know, I was really, really excited when I got to get back into the game, went to the first locals, and I saw Jim. Like, he was something that was very comforting, you know? So yeah, Jim still enjoys Black Wings, no doubt about it. He's been doing a lot with synchros, synchro heavy deck, which has been cool because we're getting 2 new sets with a lot of synchro support. So he's been playing a lot with those different things with Stardust Overdrive. I don't know the name. The next core set, and then the next character duelist set. Again, I've been up for too many hours. My mind is breaking. I apologize, but I know what you're talking about. And yeah, still playing Black Wings, but he's also diversifying.
Yeah, that's fair. And first of all, going back to before this whole gym talk, like I've always appreciated every time you come on, because you know that I always select you to do these kinds of things with me because I know that you regularly tune into my podcast and you're a name that people recognize, and we're also like very long time great friends. So I know that we can be great together and talk to each other. So I knew that there wouldn't be much of a problem, even though you're kind of in a sleep deprived state, as you mentioned earlier in the day. And I knew that I even offered you, like, hey, you know, we can do it another day. It's okay, but you're sticking it out right now. So I really appreciate you, you know, doing that. And then even after I'm done this podcast, I still have a video to edit for work for tomorrow morning. So I still have like work to do myself. So I'm with you on that front on having to be up a little bit late to do some extra work. So again, your time is highly appreciated.
Oh, no problem. And I didn't say it. I promise you, I didn't say it to make you feel guilty about this. You did offer me the out. I was excited about it. I felt like it would be a nice break in the work. And again, I apologize for not being completely on, but I think we're still having a good talk.
No, we definitely are. And I don't think I ever told this anecdote regarding you, but way back when I first came to Belleville for Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, so I think you remember a guy by the name of Tyson Spicer, if you remember who he is.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love Tyson.
So he was kind of integral to getting me connected with Belleville. Like, I already knew about Belleville beforehand in the meta because they used to come to Peterborough occasionally and play our tournaments. But Tyson was the first time that he actually brought me to a Belleville tournament. And, you know, I asked him about, you know, how's the competition over here? And he said, like, you're going to stomp everybody. That if you play the way that you do, you're going to stomp everybody. He said, but the only exception that you might run into trouble with, if you had to go with, is this guy. I call him Rhino.
Yeah.
So when he said that name, I thought he said your name was Rhino, like the animal. Yeah, I didn't believe it was Ryan-O. I didn't realize that's what he said. So it's like, if you're gonna have any trouble, it's him you've got to worry about. But other than that, if you can get by him, you should be able to like win the tournament, no problem. And I remember you and we played off in the semifinals in a GB mirror match, and like I know I did 2-0 you that day, but it wasn't easy. And then I remember the next time we played each other, I think I was playing like Gravekeepers or something like that, and then you just blew me out of the water. I'm like, geez, like Ryan just killed me. I'm like, geez. And I was so demotivated too, because that was the day before we were going to Ottawa for a regional. I'm like, I don't want to play this deck anymore. Like, I don't know what deck do I play now. And then going back to Jim, he was playing. He's playing like Frog Monarchs, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to him, but he wasn't playing it optimally.
Oh
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
test playing with him. I'm like, you should have done this move. Should have like this would have been better. This would have been better. And I thought to myself, you know what? I actually have all the stuff to make this deck right now.
Oh,
Let's take this deck with me, and let's just go to regionals for fun. So because I decided, it's an auto regional. I didn't have my invite at that point, so I just thought, let's have some fun. Let's go play with Frog Monarchs. Nobody's gonna see it coming. Nobody did, and I actually started off 4-0. And this is when Six Samurais were out, and Xian was there, but not triple gateway. It was a single gateway at that point, so that was still there. And I actually started off 4-0. I think I was 4-2. I was X2 heading into the last round. And then as the second last round was ending, a guy just stole one guy's deck out of nowhere and just ran out of the building. So I went to go, So I went to go chase him, and I thought I thought I saw the thief, so I just confronted him, called the police. I had to wait for him to show up, but I couldn't like restrain him or anything, so he just ran off with it, and then I had to deal with the police and everything like that. So when that was happening, the last round was happening, and of course I wasn't going to win my last round, and I did the math. And I said, if I had won my match, I would have snuck in an 8th seed had I won my match. But I knew that my round 8 opponent wasn't to push over. He was actually a really good player, and we could have gone either way, honestly. Um, but again, like that happened. But I played with Frog Monarchs. I surprised a lot of people with it. I'm like, I'm 4-0 with Frog Monarchs. I'm like, this. I don't expect to be this far with this. And this was like Lightsworn was out, 6AM was out. It was just funny that happened. So it's funny how like the whole Jim, Ryan, Tyson, Josh thing, all the Belleville guys, so we're both familiar with, kind of like comes into full circle with everything. So ever since that day that Tyson brought me to Belleville, I always had like my eye on you on my radar. It's like, watch out for Ryan. He's actually going to be a good opponent. Because no disrespect to Belleville, but a lot of the players that I played during that time weren't very good. Like they weren't the greatest of players. Like a lot of the players were like kind of like more like newish kind of thing. And then there's a couple people like that just were just like weren't that great. Like Bushman, for example, like he was there. Like he was a great guy, great to be around, but not very good at the game. And then there was Mac Ellis, if you remember him. I've had like a long series with him in my old channel. Not great at the game either. I love playing him. He was always fun to play with, but again, like not the greatest player in the game, kind of thing. But that's what it was. And then you were kind of like the one out of the bunch that was actually like a stand-up bunch that was actually good. And then Mario was good, and then Jonathan was good, if you remember those guys as well.
Yeah, so I guess to get deep into the Belleville lore, first of all, going back to Jim Frog Monarch, I'd like to know there have been 100 occasions where I built a deck, I didn't play test it, and I just brought it to locals to learn it. I'm sure that's what he was doing. Happens to all of us. That said, yeah, our locals was always really interesting because, as you noted, there really isn't many card shops for one to go to in any direction. It's like an hour drive, either to Kingston or to Scarborough or what have you. So we had really big locals simply because there weren't a lot of options, and we'd have like 25 to 30 players, but a lot of them were really casual. And top 4 was normally, and like this isn't to pat myself on the back or anything. A lot of these guys, taught me how to play. But it was normally I'd come in first, Josh Tremere would come in second, Ryan Kane would come in third, and then it would be like Jim or Tom maybe in that 4th spot, maybe Jason Boa or Andrew Dinkle. Well, obviously, if Tyson came, he'd be right up there, mix everything up. So yeah, it was interesting because we had a lot of players, but a lot of them were pretty casual, and top 4 was pretty consistent, which was nice. It was cool knowing that, like, okay, I'll go and then I'll win like 50 credit, and there's like half a box this week, and then we'll do that again next week. But like I was also pretty. I'd play the best deck. Like I just would. I had no shame in it. I don't think like meta sheep and like all of those like ridiculous terms were so prevalent back then. And I'd just say, okay, well, what's the best? That is okay, sure, we'll do that. but I guess that's just Yu-Gi-Oh! And Tyson was
Yep.
great because yeah, you talk about him. He would always come down from the sneak peeks with like the absolute best deck day one. I remember when Six Samurais just came out, he had three of the promo Grandmasters and all of that.
Mhm.
When the Dark World deck came out, that was also like with Jinzo and Machine Dupe and Card Trooper and like that really fun Abomination, that really fun pile.
Yep.
He came down and he played with that, and I always love playing against Tyson. He had just so much energy, always willing to like play combo decks before combo decks were really a thing, if that makes any sense. But yeah, great little piece of history for anyone who's listening and they didn't grow up in Belleville. And I apologize for the conversation kind of straying, but it's good memories with good friends, right?
Yeah, and these are just stories of your locals experience, because knowing that you grew up in a small shop, but there was a lot of people in there, and that was a big allure that I had when I came to Belleville for the first time, because there was 20 plus people, and that was for me 20 plus people for me to trade with, for me to play with, get a new experience, and play like whole new people that I've never played before in my life. And that's always like a great experience that I always have when I play this game, is going to a new place and playing people that I've never played with before. Because sometimes it can get a little bit stagnant playing like the same people over and over again. You kind of want like something new, something fresh. Uh, and that's what Belleville was to me. So ever since I got to that one tournament, I got hooked on Belleville tournaments. And I would, every time I had a free weekend, I would message the Belleville friends at the time and say, hey, can you guys house me for a weekend? I'd love to come up and visit you guys, and I'd love to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'd often be able to do that, to play like top of the tournament, maybe win a couple times, then go back, play video games, have like eat a bunch of great
Yeah.
food, and like have a great night with everybody. And that's what I would do. And that was the just like the pinnacle of me visiting your hometown in Belleville, being able to do all of that. And and Belleville plays a very giant role in my life when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh. So I want to thank Tyson for introducing me to that, and then kind of look at where you and I are now in the Yu-Gi-Oh world. I know I'm starting to get a little bit more success here and there, and then you've just kind of blown up and just be one of the most popular Yu-Gi tubers out there right now with your 1v1 series. And it's just kind of nice to see that we can have these humble beginnings and then just kind of grow up from to where we are now.
Oh yeah, it was always great to have you come down. Always actually like genuinely really exciting to hear that Bowie was coming.
Yeah.
And I do need to circle back just for a second because
Yeah.
I realized in my description of our locals I did not mention Mario or John Lynch. And that's because they kind of fall in a weird place. And Mario and I've talked about this a little bit, but like Mario and I never got to play together when we were both invested in the game, which is really strange because I played a little bit when he had just started, but he, like when I was really into the game, he was just getting into it. So he didn't really know the meta or what was really happening with all of that. But then I quit, and then I came back after like a year and a half for maybe a 6-month period. And I was just playing like dumb meme decks, I think like Worms and whatnot. And when I came back, I think John and Mario were consistently like the best there.
Yeah.
After they had a little bit of time to learn the game. But I remember coming back and thinking, okay, well, there are two guys here I have to beat, and it's those two. And I feel like Mario and I were kind of going back and forth. But like he was still learning the game, and I just wasn't involved in the game. So I don't know the legitimacy there. I don't think either of us really count any of that as like who is better. And John was just very good. The first regionals that Mario and John went together, they both topped, which is crazy. Yeah, very first regionals.
No, good. It took me 4 regionals for me to make my first top 8, which I thought that was actually not good at the time. But then I realized, looking at everybody else, it's like, no, actually, if you top 8 your 4th regional, that's actually pretty good. It's pretty good.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it is. And again, like when I encountered Mario, like he was the one that I felt, okay, after you was like, okay, and after it was like Jim, Tom, Ryan, and Josh, because I already knew about those guys. I'm like, okay, this guy's actually like really good and really competent in the game. It was like, okay, I have to I can't laugh at these guys. Like the kid gloves are off. Like I gotta go like all out with this guy. And same with Jonathan too. Like they both gave me some great matches. Like I think I have a winning record over both of them, but not to say that they've definitely had some like skillful wins over me and have like just pounded me into the ground outright. Like they
Yeah.
were definitely competent, and like they helped kind of turn Belleville more competitive and made the community better on a competitive standpoint. Because now we have because it's you and now it's Mario. I know you guys are starting to develop like the community up a bit. I know like Ryan Kane kind of comes in and out of the game a bit, and now we have a guy who probably we should be talking about a little bit more now going into the future is a guy named we call Ganon. One of my friend Mitch, he calls him the evil wizard, and he's a fantastic player in his own right as well. In this game, he's top regionals before, and he's
He's won
always given me some great
originals.
matches. Yep, and he has,
Yeah.
yeah. So he's
Yeah,
actually
Toronto, I
really good
think,
for him. Yeah,
which is
and
really impressive considering how large those normally are.
yeah, exactly. Him and I have actually top eight the same regional actually, strangely enough. So that was a great moment that we had, and I love Ganon. He's a great guy to be around, and every time I go to locals, it's like, oh, why do I have to play Ganon in top four? Why can't I play him like top two or something like that? It's like I want a top four, but Ganon's gonna be in my way, and we've had some great matches where it's been him winning and it's been me winning, and it happens. So I know that Belleville's starting to build their community up a little bit more as we go along with Mario's gaming world with his shop. And as you know, I've had a very extensive podcast with him. Great in talk with him. Great in getting the other side of the 1v1 series as not just you, but getting to talk to Mario's side of things as well. But it's also nice that you get to see a friend get to make his own store. And I'm sure that's been a dream of a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players, is just kind of having your own store. And he's living out right now with Mario's Gaming World in Belleville, being pretty much the only Yu-Gi-Oh store that's around.
Yeah, for sure. It's something he's been working on for a long time. He's doing a great job. He made it through the pandemic, and now I think he's really ready to expand with streaming. With he rented out a second room, so the shop's going to be double the size, which is really nice. And have larger tournaments once it's actually legal, and I think that there's a really bright future there too.
And it was great to have him on. It was like I actually thought of Mario strangely enough putting my podcast. I'm like, why don't I have Mario on? I should totally have Mario on. I was actually in Brighton, and for people who don't know where Brighton is about a half an hour away from Belleville. I was going there to meet a friend to go golfing, and I thought, why don't I have Mario on my podcast? He would be a great guest to have on. And he's the other half of the 1v1 series. I'm like, gotta have him on. I messaged him, and he's like, yep, sure, I'll come on. I'll come right on. And he was happy to jump on it. It was great to have him, and I know both of us have a great history with him. And great guy, and I'm so glad he's got a shot moving forward. And again, as I mentioned, I'm going to get a brigade of people from Peterborough to come to Mario's shop, and we're gonna see each other. I don't know if we're gonna do like a filming collab on your channel or not. I don't know. Maybe that could be something we could do later on. But I'm gonna at least come down there. We're gonna do something fun together, at least for sure, when I come visit you guys.
It sounds great. Make sure everybody's double vaxxed, but sounds great.
Yeah, for sure. I'm
Yeah.
I'm in the midst of trying to get myself double vaxxed right now. I got the one. Let's see if I can get myself the second one before I start like really going out for sure. But I understand your cautiousness in that regard. I completely get it.
Yeah. And like I'd also I don't know that I really have a platform or open myself to a platform where I get to say this, but anybody who's watching this and has watched this far is obviously pretty invested in what Mario and I do here on YouTube. So I would like to say I feel so grateful, like so incredibly grateful to have re-met Mario, re-entering into Yu-Gi-Oh. He has taught me so much about modern Yu-Gi-Oh. He has provided me with so many different opportunities. He was driving us to regionals. You meet certain people in your life who you feel change it dramatically, and I feel he's definitely one of them. And he's such a smart guy. Like even when he doesn't know the game, he can do really well with it. When you watch him play decks on stream, like often he won't look up any combos, he won't look up any deck profiles. He'll just intuitively go with like what works here, what works there. If any of you follow him, he's been doing a lot of Digimon stuff on his channel, and like he just won like a pretty big content creator charity tournament. So think of like the Yu-Gi-Tuber Grand Championship, except everybody's playing like a serious deck. He's been doing so good with Digimon, and he's doing so good with Yu-Gi-Oh. The last regionals he went to, he top aided right before the pandemic. So like major shout outs to Mario. Such a like a genuinely smart guy, and someone I'm very grateful to have in my life.
Yeah, that's what he definitely is. He just knows a lot of duel theory. So when I duel with him, it's always a major chess match, just him and I going back and forth with each other like crazy. And I remember a very long time ago, he used to have his own Yu-Gi-Oh blog that his own website and everything. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I do. I do.
Yeah. So yeah, and I would read it because I would like to know like what gets through his head and whatnot. Because he's a great player and is in his own right, and now he's starting to duel a lot of people on stream. I've joined him a couple times on there. I played him 3 times already on a stream. So always nice for him to like invite me and have me on and play with him. So it's probably one of the very few channel collaborations I've been able to do that's outside my channels. So that's always nice to be able to interact with him outside of it and be a part of his Twitch stream because he's really gaining a lot of steam and momentum on that regard. And I know that you guys do watch parties of the recent like 1v1 series when it gets released. You do stream and you kind of watch it together and kind of run through it. And I was on the last one, and I think the one before that, that's when I started playing him for the first time.
Yeah, yeah. He he's been playing some pretty fun decks. I think he was playing Amazements, which
Yep.
if you know Mario, not historically a fan of trap decks at all. Mario likes heavy combo, but he saw the new deck coming out. He had a lot of people asking him to play it, so he figured he'd give it a go. And considering he was playing like 6 monsters, and just having fun, he was doing pretty well with it. He's about to jump into Infernoble, very specifically because when the deck came out, I loved it. I think it's when it had smoke in it, I think it's my favorite modern Yu-Gi-Oh deck. It was just like such a cool combo deck that could go in a lot of different directions. Very consistent, and obviously the deck's had a couple hits, but I really want to start playing again. I want to learn that deck, despite the fact that it's a little more fragile. And I was like, okay, I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh in a year, not modern anyway. So
Yep.
I'm gonna get Mario to learn Infernoble, and then I'm gonna get him to teach it to me.
It's great that you can kind of live vicariously through Mario with Yu-Gi-Oh, and then once he's got it all done, then he can give you the crash course on it. So that way you can at least learn by association with him. So that way you don't have to spend hours and hours with it. You can just kind of work intimately with him because you guys are so close. So it's kind of nice how that fits with your timeline, considering I know how busy you are with both your channels, and that you get to supplement this with being able to learn with him and just kind of like fast track your way through everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, for background context in returning to Yu-Gi-Oh, I didn't have any time there too. So whatever deck I brought to that week's locals, I didn't do any testing. I didn't really do test stands. I didn't really learn the deck. Like, honestly, I didn't look at the combos for the most part. Like, I did as much as I had to do to make the video as complete as it could be. But like, for the most part, it was me going to the shop, learning the deck round one, and then continuing from there. But I might get lucky, and if like I had any foresight, and this happened with Thunder Dragon combo, the one that Jesse Cotton continuously did really well with.
Yep.
After one local, I think it was the 4th local, is I was like, hey Mario, I want to play this next week. Here's a pile of cards, show me how to play it. And we stayed up for like 3 hours. He learned the deck, and then he taught me the deck. And then of the following locals, I played it, and I was able to top. I lost to him. He played in the locals. There was literally 1 second left on the clock. He summoned a Grand Maju, and he swung over the monster, and it was just it was a big old meme. Really enjoyable, great content. Happy it happened. But yeah, just again, I very lucky in that I don't have any time, but I have someone very smart in my life who can teach me something very quickly.
Yeah, and I kind of used Ganon as kind of the same thing when I was living in Belleville, because he would be playing a lot of the top tier decks that Belleville didn't have. So, for example, he ran the kind of like the Danger Thunders with Slash Draw that Jesse Cotton took to a couple tournaments, and he just kind of walked me through the entire combo. He just did it. I was just like, okay, do your turn. I have hand traps, but I'm not going to play them.
Yeah.
Like, do it with me. And Rory would also be over there too, because he was somewhat like dabbling and trying to get back in the game. And again, I always say this, it's like it was at the point where you were still in Toronto, and then and I was living in Belleville, and then finally when I moved out of Belleville, you moved back to you moved back there. I was like, oh, the timing just could be any more worse. But that's what I was doing with them, with Ganon as far as that goes, because he was running decks that not a lot of other people could like get access to at that point in time. So he was really good learning tool for me in Belleville because Mario wasn't really playing at that point in time. He was just maybe dabbling a little bit, but he was more invested with kind of his store opening because that was the point where he was just opening up like space that his parents owned and just let us use that for like tournaments and stuff. And he would just kind of act like as like a mini vendor kind of thing before he actually took it into an actual business. If you remember those days of him trying to like get up off the ground with his business.
Yeah, I wasn't around for any of that, but I have kind of heard about all of it. Yeah, I really, really wish I played during that format where Thunder Dragon had 3 Gold Sark, though. You brought that
Yeah.
up really quickly.
Yeah.
Man, that looked like a fun deck.
Yeah, I just wish you lived in Belleville during that time when I was there because like I learned very little in video editing. I just learned like the bare minimum for what journalists need to do, not to the extent that you did. So I wish I was around with you so we could kind of do all this stuff together and you'd kind of help me with like video editing and everything like that. So like I'm just thinking of like what could have been, but still though, I mean it's nice to see that you're back in Belleville and knowing that when I can come visit because I often visit Belleville, that I can come see you guys and play Yu-Gi-Oh with you. That's something I look forward to once everything opens up for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Very much,
Yeah.
very much so.
So I'm gonna ask you one more question, and you don't have to answer, of course, but I gotta ask you: is there any so with your series kind of approaching its end? Is there anything else new that you're going to launch at us, or rather, I should ask, what's next for your channel once this series has reached its conclusion?
Well, we have a couple of ideas. I've kind of felt like this series, cinematography wise, has really been my love letter to the community. Put a lot of hours into it, and I think I need to take a little bit of a break from the actual editing side of things. So I'm going to start a new series, but I'm going to work with an editor to handle the bulk of it. I still want to do some kind of creative B-roll and whatnot in the intro, but there's going to be a new series, which should be Mario, myself, and 2 other guests. It will be weekly, but because I will not be editing the bulk of it, it's my intention to eventually be able to do 2 videos a week. That's one of the largest requests that I continuously get. It's like, hey, I love your content, but can I have more? And the answer is always like, I do not have time. Like a man can only work, 80, 90 hours consecutively. But the next series should be really interesting, should be different from what you're used to, will be Yu-Gi-Oh related, will also continue to involve Mario, and will be done in such a way which allows for more videos to be done in other series, because Mario and I have talked about a couple other series that we want to start, and we're just kind of feeling it all out. I'm also going to start a Halo channel because Halo Infinite's coming out. I think that's like probably my favorite pastime. And so the fall is going to be very interesting. There's going to be a lot going on, but I can guarantee you that you'll get at least 1 new Yu-Gi-Oh series, and it will have Mario, so you'll still get that fun dynamic, but it'll also have a couple more fun guests, but we'll reveal more of that a little bit later on.
Okay, well, I'm glad to know at least that once your series has concluded, that you still want to be in part of the Yu-Gi tubing. You still want to do something because I'm sure that's a question that I don't know if a lot of people have asked you about before, but I'm sure that's something that's been on their minds because we know that obviously there has to be an end to the sealed only because you set an end goal at the very start, so obviously there's an end to it, and people are gonna wonder like, will we get to see more of Ruggles in the future? And I'm sure that's something you've been asked before.
Well, yeah, it's actually a really funny question given the timing. I initially just intended to make a Halo vlog channel back at the end of 2019 because we all assumed that the game was going to come out, and then it didn't. So I was like, okay, need a different hobby, need a different excuse to see friends, need a different way to kind of work creatively through video. So okay, I'll start Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'll do that for 1 year. And then when Halo comes out in 2020, the series will be over, I'll have this like really nicely edited love letter to the Yu-Gi-Oh community, something that I love from my childhood. I will sunset that and I will start the Halo thing. But
Gotcha.
yet again, Halo did not come out.
Yeah.
So Mario were like, all right, Farfa and Distant Coder have a great idea and Sealed Only Rivals. What if we took that and just stole it? What if we just copied it beat for beat, but we did it in person? Which obviously we did. Shout out to both Nadir and Kevin. But then because of it, I feel like I'm just so deeply rooted in the Yu-Gi-Oh community now that I can't just sunset the channel like I initially intended to. So now you've got me. Now you're going to have a new series, and there will also be Halo content for those who are interested in that.
It's probably the only FPS that I would actively like play in. But I'm an awful teammate for FPSs. Like you can use me if we play like campaigns and stuff. But if you ever take me into like Halo series, like when we play online, you're gonna find me at like the bottom 2. That's where you're gonna. It's for some reason I'm just awful at FPSs. I don't know what it is. I feel like I'm like, okay, maybe I'm pretty decent, but then when I actually play, it's like, well, he's actually not that good. I get killed a lot. I don't know if I just don't understand like the etiquette, or rather like what's the norms kind of thing. Like I don't know how to like wield the sword properly. In other words, I mean it metaphorically, but I don't know what it is. But for some reason, I'm just awful in FPSs, and everyone I play with will just easily school me for the most part, unless it's like a young kid. That's the only time I might have an advantage.
Well, Mario said the same thing. Mario feels the same way. So we're actually going to try something where I attempt to teach Mario how to become like truly competitive, play the high ranking playlists and all of that. And if we are successful, then maybe we'll also bring you in.
Yeah, you might have to. That means I might have to get an Xbox in the future or something like that. I'm kind of with. I got a PS4 only because Street Fighter V was exclusive to it at the time outside of PCs. So that's the sole reason why I got it. Now I'm just debating what next gen system do I get moving forward when all this happens. So we'll see. If I have to train with you in Halo, maybe that's something I will have to do moving forward. I just gotta hope that the next Street Fighter is also available on Xbox. That might make my decision a little bit easier, but who knows? Crossing my fingers. So, but if I can, I wouldn't mind playing with you, like off camera or whatnot.
It would be fun to have an excuse to chat a little bit more.
Yeah, just a little bit more. That's as much as I love talking to you about Yu-Gi-Oh, but there are some times where it's nice to talk outside of Yu-Gi-Oh as well. Like, I mean, I do that with my best friend all the time. We don't talk about Yu-Gi-Oh anymore, except for maybe like me just having a terrible time, or me having like a laughable moment. Or if I win, then he just like tearing me down. I actually won a Yu-Gi-Oh day actually yesterday, so that's nice for me. And I know typically these podcasts are about my guests, but this is the one time where I'm allowed to be a little bit selfish and say, hey, let's talk about me for a little bit.
Please do.
So I won a Yu-Gi-Oh day on Saturday, played Drytrons, and I did a lot of testing the night before as well. And I was playing against a bunch of decks that would made like 9, 12 hand traps, and Drytron usually dies when it's just breathed on once. One hand trap is like, okay, you're done. You're done. You're not. You have a suboptimal move now. That's what Drytrons is. And I played the weirdest decks. I played against Adamancipator. I played against like Dogmatica Necros, like Necros. I played against Wing Raiders, like Phantom Knights. It was such a weird, diverse meta that I played against, and it was. And I wasn't playing in Peterborough's local. I was playing in a different local. So it was
physical
so weird.
Or online?
It was online. It still had to be online.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I played the Barry's local, like Barrie, Ontario, which is, with people don't know, is an hour north of Toronto. So I played their local, and it was just a weird local. I played there once before, and I knew the meta was really weird there. That's where Hanko Chow is from, by the way. That's where he's residing, by the way. For people who don't know who Hanko is, he's a TCG player, writer, and usually tops with like a bunch of like really weird, tricked out decks. That's where he's residing right now, and their meta is just so weird. So there's that. Also, like to celebrate some great stuff for my channel. I mean, I just recently got partnered with YouTube, so that was really awesome.
Ooh, very nice. Know,
right?
Congratulations!
Thank you. Really appreciate it. And that's what I thought. Let's put out that new series of the Gate News. I wanted to call it The Guardian originally, but that's actually the name of an actual newspaper already,
It
like
is.
a worldwide newspaper. So I'm like, I can't use that name. And I couldn't think of any other good name at the time because I want to implement Gate into it because I'm Gate Guardian 44. I can't think of anything else right now. If you have a better name like down the road, like please tell me and if it's better, I'll change it. But this is what I'm gonna roll with right now until I can figure out something else, or if it's just good enough with what it is. So that new series is happening. I got partners, which is great. And this is the 1 year anniversary of the podcast itself, and I'm moving on to season 3. So a lot of big things happening for me right now in regards to my channel moving forward that I'm very happy about. And I've seen some like steady growth in my sub count, which is nice. Of course, I'd always like to have it higher, but I'm trying to do this like the good, hard, honest way. I don't want people to sub to me just because it's like, oh yeah, sub to this guy because whatever. Like I want people to sub because they legitimately enjoy my content, which is what I'm hoping the case, and I'm hoping that's the same case for you. Why you listen to my content?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that all of the recent success is very deserved. I mean, we were talking about it earlier, and the idea of consistency and collaboration and putting your best foot forward. And I feel like you've been a great example of all of that. And it's nice
Mm-hmm.
to see that it's paying off and being fruitful.
Yeah, and I hope that I'm also setting an example for everybody out there. Is that look, if I'm having a different person every single week, so these people are actually they're very open to being like talked to and helping you out. It's just a matter of you just gotta go out there and try. You gotta ask, and you can't be afraid of rejection at this point because that's what my whole channel is strictly based on people saying yes to me. And I've messaged people before that don't even know who I am. Like for example, like Zara, she didn't know. She had no idea who I was when I messaged her. Like Joe didn't really know me very well, but thankfully Sean Montague said, recommended me to him. So like Hani kind of knew of me very well. Like Gabriel Nets and Christian Thomas, they had no idea who I was. And even Distant Coder, he didn't have any idea who I was when I asked him. But the people are a lot more open than you think when you talk to these guys and say, "Hey, can you help me out?" Like I understand again where you said like I'd maybe not have the time to collaborate with every single person. Like maybe because I remember like the first time I talked to you about this, you said like I don't know if I would really collaborate with somebody who has like 5 subscribers to the channel or whatnot because that might feel like for not to disrespect them, but kind of a waste of time kind of thing.
Well,
As
it's not that. It's really just that we only have so much time in our day,
yeah.
and realistically, you're going to collaborate more with people who you know or have an affinity for, or have an endorsement of some kind, because then at least it's going to be a good situation, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because you don't really want to get blindsided, and you want people to you are by professional a journalist, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That means when somebody talks to you, you know how to talk to people, how to make them feel comfortable, how to be appropriate in all of those scenarios, right? And I think that generally, again, one is to partner with someone who can either make them feel comfortable or just provide that right environment.
Mhm.
And while the person with 5 subscribers might be excellent at their job, but there just might not be anything to show about that.
Yeah.
And so again, it's not that it's not worth the time, it's just that there isn't a lot of security in
Mhm.
doing something like that. But if I get to know somebody and I really enjoy them, I told you I did one other podcast. I've been asked to do over a dozen by different people.
Yeah.
I've done yours, and then I did this other one. The other one didn't even have a YouTube channel. He does his podcasts over on Twitch. I think that we had like 8 concurrent viewers throughout the entirety of it.
Yeah.
Um, and that was a very small um, you know audience that we were talking to,
Mhm.
but I didn't think of it as a waste of time. I thought of it as an opportunity to talk to someone who seemed like a really great guy. We talked a little bit before we interacted. I think that he showed himself to be professional and relatable.
Mhm.
So I said yeah to that one. And
Yeah.
like normally that might not happen, but it goes to what you're saying about reaching out. And again, he had 0 subscribers, I think, and
Yeah.
that So sometimes you just say yes if things feel comfortable and are presented well.
Yeah. And I know that I know I did one interview actually with a friend that I've known for a long time, but he was kind of doing it more for school. Like he had to do like a series of interviews for school, and I agreed to him because I'm trying to help him out with an assignment here because that's something like I had to do when I was in school. I had to interview so many people as a student, and I've had a lot of people just reject me and just say no, I don't feel like talking, even though they knew it was a school assignment that I had to do. But so I kind of understood that struggle. But when I started my channel, I figured if I wanted to gain some like credibility and notoriety, I had to go after the biggest dogs that I knew I could get on the channel offhand because I boasted in my intro video that like I knew a lot of people because I played this game for so long and so many people know me. So that's why I start off with like I had Triff, I had Jesse Codden, I had Team Samurai, I had Gabe, I had Doug Zeef. Like I picked up like some of the biggest dogs that I could
Mhm.
to really start off my channel. And that way, when I started branching off to other people, yeah, I could say, well, I've done interviews with these guys before. If you want an example of my work and whatnot, that's how I was able to get a Cody Angeloff. And then after I did it with Cody and he liked what I did, he's like, yeah, you should talk to Pac because Pac would be a really great guy to have on. And then eventually I started talking to Pac. Pac helped me out, and then it starts to snowball from there and there. And when people start to like look at your channel a bit more and get more notoriety, like you have the authority now to start asking people, and you're typically going to end up with a good response. Like that's how I got Michael Hilario, like Slim Yu-Gi-Oh, for example. That's how I got him. That's how I got Crush Cards because they saw me what I did. It was like, yeah, like sure, we'll have you on. And then when you made your endorsement to me to Simo, that's how like I was able to get him on. And then he led me to Distant Coder. So it's just like this big giant snowball that just got bigger and bigger and bigger after I like made a name for myself, at least in the podcasting world, albeit a very small name. But it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And now look where I am, even though I only have about just under 1,500 subscribers, but I'm partnered. Like people are watching my stuff, and like a lot of big names are joining my podcast now. So there has to be at least some kind of merit if I'm able to get like these kind of collaborations on a weekly basis.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that all goes right back to the idea of building something which you can trust. You can
Mhm.
send to someone and they can feel, oh, okay, this will be a good, comfortable environment.
Yeah.
They've done this a lot. It's going to be a good experience.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's great, and I
Yeah.
think that's great advice in general for people who want to get into content creation and collaboration.
Yeah, it really is because when I asked Steven, I asked Jesse, and I asked Sam, Gabe, they all know me in real life because like
Hmm.
the five of us, we're all Canadian. We all play in like the Toronto regionals or like a surrounding area, so we all knew each other by then. So that was a great place for me to start. I'm like, okay, like I said, I posted, I knew these people. I knew them, and same like in Dale Bolito too. Like I knew these guys, so I knew that an endorsement from these guys would help me like get myself on the map, and then I could start branching out. Because then I asked Doug Zeef, who only knew me once by a feature match that he did, but then he agreed to be on my podcast. And then after that, he made at the end of one of his videos, he said, "Hey, I gave you a shout out. Hope this kind of helps you out," and it certainly did. And then it just keeps going from there on. And like you seen a good friend of mine like help me out, and then you of course have been like a fantastic help with me like getting a bigger audience. It's that big snowball effect again. I'm going right back to it. But when you just know like one person, like work on it and then just let it roll from there, and then things will start to come in place. But you also have to work for it as well. It's not just going to be poof, it happens. You still got to work for it. But once you do, like you can definitely see the results, and like they're starting to show. Like you're one of the top podcasts. Like you have like over 700 views on mine, and that's considered pretty large by and part compared to the rest of the podcasts that are out there. So it really is there really is merit to just really pushing yourself hard and just having no fear and just asking these people out to do these collabs with you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And again, it's all about building a portfolio.
Yeah, it really is. And I know that you also did one with, I think you did an ad with, I haven't had him on my channel yet. He might be a future guest with King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh, who's basically like Mr. TikTok of like Yu-Gi-Oh vines right now. And I know he does like a lot of funny little skits on TikTok, even though I hate the app. But I know that you kind of had a small collaboration with him running an ad.
Oh yeah, I love him. For the record, it wasn't a real ad; it was a mock ad.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, he was, again, I was very busy in my life, but I was familiar enough with his content, and I
Mhm.
thought he was hilarious, and I thought he was a wholesome dude.
Yeah.
And he messaged me and was like, hey, can you say like this one line into the camera? And I was like, normally I say no, but yeah, sure, we'll do one line.
Yeah.
I trust that you'll do something responsible and good
Mm,
with it. And then he
mm,
sent me back a message. He's like, also, really sorry if like it doesn't seem like a lot. I really do like what you do. I do trust you to say more. And I was like, no. Like the 8 seconds of time that you require from me is beautiful for a collaboration. Like, I love that. Thank you. And what he did with it was hilarious.
mhm.
Really, really love that guy. I follow him on Twitter, and
Yeah.
I
So
feel
do
like he
I.
posts a lot of really good stuff. He's one of my favorite people up on there.
Yeah.
And I also, you keep talking smack on TikTok, man. I do not have TikTok,
Yeah.
but I very much respect it as a
Yeah.
platform. I think it is very much the platform of the future. I think that Vine was very successful, with the exception of the fact that they would not pay their content creators, and that sunk their platform. You
Yeah.
had everybody like the Paul brothers, you had Amanda Cerny, you had so many really talented, and I know people keck W at that, like, oh, they're talented. Like, they've built empires off of their personalities and their
Mhm.
creative videos. So yeah, they are. But like, Vine was huge, and Vine should have lived, and Vine should have been the future, but the people who managed it were awful.
Mhm.
Then people made TikTok, and they realized, oh, we should monetize. We should actually ensure the people who are on this like do well. TikTok is the future. TikTok is for low attention spans, which we all have and we continue to get more and more of. TikTok is accessible. TikTok is it's such a great platform if you want to get into doing what you're doing. And King Scarlet has noted that he gets a lot more views on his TikTok than he does on
Yes.
his
Yes, he
YouTube.
does.
So if you are a content creator and you are looking for a different way to diversify, get yourself out there,
Yeah.
be known, YouTube is very saturated. TikTok and Yu-Gi-Oh is not, and it is a great opportunity if you are willing to learn the extra platform. If I had a little bit more time, or if I was full-time Yu-Gi tubing, I
Yeah.
would 100% be doing weekly Yu-Gi-Oh TikToks,
Mhm.
no doubt about it. And I think that you and I, are you also a millennial?
Yes, I am. 87, 1987.
Yeah. Really? Oh, I didn't realize
Yeah. I'm
I
not
was older than. Wait, 87. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
87. I'm
Yep.
older.
Okay. You are older. I wrong decade. We need to be open-minded. We need to look at these
Mhm.
new platforms, because MySpace died.
It
Facebook
did.
is
Yep.
becoming something for older people, and the algorithm is awful.
Yeah.
Instagram is getting up there in age. I think that if you are a content creator and you want to have longevity,
Mm,
you need to be able to pivot with your platforms
mhm.
and move where the audiences are. And that means having an open mind. And I know, like, you're jokingly going off on TikTok, but like, for anybody who is thinking about doing content creation, really consider other platforms, not
Mhm.
just what you grew up with because it's nostalgic and comfortable.
Yeah.
Consider where the audience is going.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I know that eventually, with my current career right now, is that we're looking to getting a new studio and opening it up, and then we're starting to create a TikTok account. So I'm going to have to actually get myself immersed in it. And I made a joking post, I remember, on my Facebook one day, and I said, uh, I believe I'm paraphrasing myself, saying, yeah, sometimes you have to make sacrifices for a career, and it's a screenshot of just my phone with just TikTok on it. So I actually have
That is
TikTok
good.
on my I actually have TikTok on my phone, but I
Mhm.
don't ever access it. But I know that eventually, like, I need to keep it on there, because my work is going to create a TikTok very soon. So I know that I'm gonna have to eventually get familiar with it. And I actually had to do a story once on what a local person who's TikTok famous. So I actually had to go onto TikTok, like, learn that I can copy and embed the video into my article and put it up there. So I'm like, yep, I actually have to learn a little bit of TikTok. So I'm like, oh boy. Well, I'm like, well, I guess I better learn now. So I learned for later. So yeah, it's something I have to do. But yeah, I talked to King Scarlet a little bit too. I know that he talks a lot with Tatsim, Neshi, fifth rate duelist. Like they kind of have like their own little group that they talk with a lot with each other. And I know that he said he's got a lot of success on doing TikTok. He's like, yeah, like I kind of didn't want to do it either, but was seeing the success I've kind of had on TikTok. It's like, yeah, I can't stop. I have to keep going now because it's starting to push him up. And at one point, both of us were at we had a funny post. Both of us at 1,399 subs at the very same time. And I said like, and I think I said the struggle. So and then now he's at over 2,000 subs already. And I told him, you know what, like you pushed harder than I did. You pushed a lot more. Your frequency was out there a lot more, and you put a lot more work into it than I did. And you deserved every single one of those 2,000 subs that you have there. So I'm like, I mean, good on you, man. Like I'm glad that you found an outlet. So what you're saying is you're not wrong. Like finding other platforms to really get your content out there, you're not wrong at all. And like I also put my content out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Like all my podcasts are on a lot of platforms. It's not just YouTube. And that's just what I like to be for the main. Everything else is just strictly for fun. If people just want to listen to it on the road without killing their data or whatnot, which I have no problem with either. But you're definitely right in expanding into new ways, different social media outlets, and also like Facebook. I find my Yu-Gi-Oh group on Facebook is dying, and
Mhm.
now it's moving into Discord. Discord is like very hot right now, and I know that you actually have a Discord as well that I've joined. So why don't you tell me really quickly, give me a pitch on your Discord channel?
Well, first of all, need to circle back.
Yep,
Love
yep.
that you mentioned fifth rate, Neshi, Tatsum, all of them, because you're right. They do have like their group that they play with. They talk to each other all the time on Twitter. They really promote each other and build each other up.
Good.
And I think that's really great for growth. And it's also
Hmm.
just great to have people who you feel comfortable with in the community.
Yep.
They're obviously all growing really well together.
Mhm.
But there's another example of that. We've mentioned Coder like 100 times in this podcast, but
Yep.
like there was him, Pack, and Susu, who, alongside Farfa, obviously, went really heavy on Twitch. And
Mhm.
now they're traveling to events. They're always in calls together. Like, that's another great example of uh, creators who like doing something similar on a different platform really succeeding and growing. And I think, well, Nadir, kind of the dad, Kevin being the really big brother there, and then Pack and Susu kind of working together, growing up, and having the other two really help. But they're all doing great stuff. So there are all these different little clicks in different areas. Again, like the first one I mentioned, very notable when I think about them on their Twitter interaction, and then
Mhm.
the Twitch interaction. And another thing I wanted to bring up was we talked about. Um, like Vine and Vine stars, and
Yep.
like who is the most popular gamer in 2019, 2020?
Prob-
It was Ninja, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and he always talks about, and I don't watch a lot of Ninja, admittedly, but like very much
Ditto.
respect what he was able to do for the industry in general. He talks about how he saw on Instagram that people were taking clips of him and just posting those videos, and they were getting a bunch of views. So he's like, "Oh well, why don't I do that?" So then he started posting his Fortnite clips on Instagram, and they were doing huge numbers. And then eventually, he gets a random DM from Drake, and then he plays with
Yeah.
Drake, and then
Yep.
he's the biggest gamer like out there, right?
Mhm.
He's
Mhm.
getting these incredible sponsorships from Red Bull and all of that. And it's just another example of like, well, he's a gamer who would initially conventionally be on YouTube, but he wasn't. He was on Twitch, but then he didn't actually get like massive, from what he's saying, because of Twitch. You got it from Instagram, which is a
Mhm.
completely different platform. So it really is about diversifying content and just finding different ways. So big shout out to King Starlet and everybody else
Mhm.
who is not just doing the YouTube thing to become a Yugi tuber. That's kind of happening in a way because of their other ways of going about it.
Yep.
Also, your Discord question. I do have a Discord. It's not currently open. I don't have time to engage in it properly, and
Okay.
I don't want it to be open until I can do that. So it'll probably happen in the next 6 months or so.
Okay.
But right now, it's very much on the back burner.
Okay, fair enough. Because I know that you have one. I'm a part of it, but I barely see you posting it. I'm also in like Mario's Discord as well. So, and I feel like this is also something that's also kind of taken over as well because like Discord channels are kind of growing. Like Crush Cards has one, and they have a very large community in it, and that's
Yeah.
it's a big part of how they interact with their community and how they help with their Patreon, and they also run tournaments now. Like last time I talked to them, they didn't do streams, they didn't do tournaments, and now that's what they're doing. So
Mhm.
there's more to talk about if and when I bring them back. I definitely want to bring them back because I love them so much. So it definitely great way to diversify and get even more involved in the community. And and speaking of fifth rate duels, just learned. Congrats to her. She just came second place at that tournament in New York, that case tournament we were talking about. So congrats to her. I think she was playing Drytrons and
She was.
she was making so many jokes about herself. It's like why do I think that I was going to be able to learn a combo deck? How do you think? And then all of a sudden she turns out and just destroys the competition except for one person just happened to get her. But congratulations to Zara for making that. That's probably something I should probably put news content for next week's issue. So maybe be on the lookout for that when moving forward. But yeah, congrats to her. It's I think she needs to get rid of that name. I don't think fifth rate duels is working out for her anymore.
No, I think it officially needs to change.
Yeah, it really does. So maybe I should message her about it and say, hey, yeah, you got to change that. Maybe I should have her back on and say, I think you need to get rid of that first and foremost, because she's not playing like one. If the way that she's playing right now, but she's also being taught by some of the greats too. I think like she's getting help from Cody, she's getting help from Pack. Like those two are like premier players, and then of course she's got that little clique I said with Tatsim because Tatsim's a great player in himself. I don't know how well King Scarlet is for actually the actual game. I don't know, but she's got a lot of great support around her, and I think that's how she's able to turn herself from like this. I don't want to say unconfident, but into like her like not rookie, but in like the her green zone, and then starting to like become like elite now. Now I feel like okay, she might actually just crush me now if we actually play each other. Like I'm a little bit scared by this.
Yeah,
So
she's doing so great,
yeah,
so great, so quickly.
yeah, exactly that. So congrats on her. Like it's great to see this kind of success come from another person like this, especially when she's kind of had her humble beginnings. I know she's a comedian; she likes to make fun of herself and make fun of other people a lot, which is fine. That's her shtick. But like again, this is kind of like going back to Farfa. Make no mistake, she's actually pretty good at playing. And like Farfa won two of the. I think it was like the not the Crush Card Cup was it, but it was like the YouTuber Grand
YouTuber.
Champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so exactly, like you can't take them for granted. Even though I know there was a big gimmick on the YouTuber part, but still, like winning these events is definitely a feather in your cap or getting that far for sure. So, congrats to her, and it's just kind of great to see like all these new names kind of come up because she's starting to gain a lot of popularity very fast.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of really fantastic names. I think Hakuna Maidata is another one that everybody
Yep,
should be checking out.
yep,
Elise, another great one that everybody should be checking out.
yep.
Um, the list honestly goes on, and I feel like there have been so many great content creators that have come up since I've gotten kind of into the game. I
Mhm.
remember when people thought of Revs and I as like the newbies, and now I feel like we've been here for a while, and now we get to see so many other people grow.
Mhm.
It's honestly fantastic. Another
Yeah,
person we talked about him a couple of times very quickly, but MBT. I feel like what he's built community wise with his Discord, with his tournaments, with his different series, with streaming, like that man, like what he does is incredible. I have so much respect for
mhm.
the hustle while also doing law school. Like
Yep.
if you have him on, you definitely need to talk to him about community, about building his Discord, about getting so involved with the tournaments that he runs.
Mhm.
Like it's so inspiring.
Yeah, and law school is no easy task. It's funny enough that was I originally started university to go into law school. That was my plan. I was trying to be a lawyer, but that didn't work out. But I think I did okay for myself, at least as a journalist. Not quite the same pay grade, but definitely definitely the work schedule is definitely a lot different. But like props to him because like, I know that law school is not easy by any stretch of the word at all. And props to him for being able to make all this content while going through it. So like, good on MBT for being able to do all of that and again juggle YouTube and whatnot because it's much like med school, which I presume is going to be very demanding. Like law school is pretty much the same thing, just as demanding.
Yeah, without a
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah. So before I go, since I get to be somewhat of the star of my own podcast, which sounds so cynical and egotistical when I say that out loud. Um, you again followed my channel for quite some time, as I have followed your channel. Um, is there anything that you feel that I need to do to make myself better?
To make yourself
Yeah,
better.
so to make my channel like better than what it could be. I know I'm putting you
Hmm.
on the spot. This is a little bit
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
this is a little bit of it, because I've tried to expand a little bit now with a new news segment, and and I'm trying to expand, but I'm not a full time YouTuber like a lot of other people are. So that is one kind of a little bit of a weakness, I guess you could say, with mine, because I don't put as much time as everybody else's. So it's really trying to maximize my videos. But I don't know if you would have any other personal advice from friend to friend, from YouTuber to up and coming, to help myself grow even more.
I've been thinking about it. I didn't rush to an answer because, like, realistically, we could do the friend thing. It's like, no, you're doing great. You're doing
Yeah.
fantastic. But I want to give you something useful,
Yeah,
right?
I always tell my friends, tell me straight. Don't give me the fluffed up, yeah, awesome, man. So what are you doing? Awesome. No, no. Because you're crippling me in the end if you really do that. Like, if there's something that's problematic or wrong, I want you to point it out. Like, I just had a friend the other day just tell me, when I did my news segment, he's like, look into the camera a little bit more. And I told him, you know what? I try, but I can't, because of the way my actual physical setup is. My office is, and my green screen is actually not that big enough, and I have a very tight space. So, like, I believe me, and usually when I have scripts, when journalists have scripts, it's right beside the camera. So when they're looking at the script, it's right in front of the camera. When you see news anchors do it, that's how it
Mhm.
usually works. But I don't have that luxury with it. So, and I told him that I'm like, thank you. Like, he thought I was offended for something. I'm like, no, 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 please tell me straight up. So I have no problem if people actually have like legit criticisms for me, even if it's not good, or if it's a little bit deemed offensive or whatnot. I don't take those to heart per se in that form. It's like, okay, you're legit trying to tell me something for real, and I always try to take that into consideration.
Okay. I thought of something.
All right, go, shoot.
YouTube is built on algorithms. It's built
Yeah.
on keywords. You have the right keywords at the right time when people are searching it. You get new viewers, you get new subscribers. You post frequently, they stay subscribers, and they stay engaged. While podcasts are great because you gain from having different people's audiences come and find you, it's not necessarily something they are going to continuously come back every episode for, right?
Yep.
It kind of falls into the same trap as tutorial channels. So I think what I would do if I were you, I would do your news segment. I would do it daily, if not every other day. I would still make it 3-ish minutes. I would not film with a script, A, for convenience, B, just so people get more of a real take.
Mhm.
I would include as many keywords in the title, thumbnail, or, well, not thumbnail. I guess maybe a couple in the thumbnail, but the
Mhm.
title, the description, the tags,
Mhm.
they would all be topical. So let's say a new archetype released and it came out, like, normally we hear about OCG archetypes at like 11 at night EST,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you see it on Twitter. So that morning, you make a video, you include the whatever that is, you have some artwork, you talk about whatever else happened in that day to day, and I think you'll just be able to get a lot larger of an audience
Mhm.
for a lot of videos that don't take a lot of work individually.
Okay.
And it's kind of the idea of get a lot out there, make sure that everybody who's subscribed to you is very familiarized with you,
Mhm.
and make the content easier to make. While the green screen is fun, I've also had green screens in the past. I've painted entire walls and studios green.
Mhm.
Um, I've just kind of found that often they aren't worth the effort, if that
Mhm.
makes any sense.
Yep.
Um, so I would just try to get more content out and make it topical in the title, the tags, and the description.
Okay.
Yeah,
I see.
those are my thoughts. But I love the podcast, and I wouldn't change a thing about it.
Yeah.
Except one day you need Jarrell Pro Winston on here. I want to see
That
it.
that is a name that I can put out there because he does know me, and we've talked many times before. Actually, oddly enough, back when I was trying to YouTube, I did have him in a video before where I had this segment where I just let people talk for 2 minutes, and that
2 minute
he was
warning.
yeah, the 2 minute warning, exactly. So I had him on there for a bit. So that he's definitely someone that I could definitely try to get on my podcast for sure. And again, this goes back to like the list of like high quality people doesn't stop. It's still there. Just gotta go out and look for them. So I appreciate that advice. And this kind of goes back to talking about King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh! With the frequency of how he does his videos on TikTok and how much like popularity and notoriety he's getting. And he's able to transfer all of that over into his YouTube, and he's gained so many subs. Like again, he's gotten 6,000 subs on, so 600 subs on me just like that, and to my like not even 100 subs. So he's definitely gaining notoriety because of the sheer frequency he can churn that out. So there's definitely merit on what you say, and unless like I can do the green screen and not have that kill so much time, that could be something that I could approach and kind of run forward with. So I appreciate that, and that's something I'm definitely going to consider. Maybe not make it weekly, make it like 2-3 times a week at least. So that is a good thought. I do appreciate that advice, sir.
No problem. And again, everything's perfect with the podcast. Wouldn't change a thing there. This
Dude.
is just for other content.
Of course, and that's the thing. I don't want to say I'm new per se of like making like newer content, but I am kind of fresh in doing this stuff all over again because I've done so much for actual journalism, but into like the YouTuber scene, it's a little bit, it operates a little bit differently. So I have to be able to learn how to roll with the punches, especially since I've been out of the YouTube business for God knows how long, like 6-7 years, and I just have the podcast to ride on, and now I'm trying to get into the game with these shorter news segments. So that advice is greatly appreciated from a man of your caliber.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you having me on. As always, it's a pleasure. We intended to talk for probably an hour and a half. Here we are at 3. So.
Yep, we've almost doubled the time of a normal. But then again, this is a very special episode because it's the end of season 2. It's episode 44, and I'm like, what? How else can I not have more fun with one of my favorite guests that I've had on here? So of course I had to bring you along, and thank you again, my friend, for coming back on, taking out the time to speak with me and have fun on this season ending podcast of the Gate Expectations podcast. As we move to season 3, I'm very excited about it. I've been a year in the business, and now I am partnered, and I got a new segment, and I won Yu-Gi-Oh! Day. So things are looking up for me right now in the Yu-Gi-Oh! World, and I hope it's going to be the same for you, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. And again, it's been a pleasure. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you, my friend. And that is Ruggles. If you haven't subbed to him yet or watched his 1v1 series with Mario's Gaming World, you definitely have to. One of the best series you've ever seen when it comes in terms of video production. Also awesome and entertaining to watch. Definitely recommend going to him. That is Ryan at Work, aka Ruggles, joining me on the end of season 2. Thank you so much, my friend, for coming on yet for a 3rd time, which is now a podcast record.
So you said you really didn't like Lightsworn, and then you immediately followed it up with a story about you topping with Lightsworn.
I know, right?
Where's the disconnect?
I know, right?